Chapter 1. A Flicker in the Rain. The autumn air carried a chill as sharp as a blade, and London's cobbled streets gleamed under the evening drizzle. Tall gas lanterns swayed in the wind, their flames dancing upon the puddles that pooled at the curbs. It was on such a night that Hercule Poirot found himself summoned to the Regent's Park Avenue, where a retired actor lay dead beneath a fallen lantern, its fractured glass scattering golden shards around a single telling clue. Poirot's narrow figure emerged from a hansom cab under an umbrella. His waxed moustaches gleamed faintly in the lamplight, and every hair in place bespoke the fastidious care for which his reputation was renowned. Beside him followed Captain Hastings, umbrella tilted likewise against the rain, though his expression held the eager anticipation of one who delights in Poirot's ventures. The scene awaited them, a narrow side street cornering the expanse of Regent's Park, cordoned off by uniformed constables, whose polished boots stood sentinel upon rain-slicked stones. The tall lantern, once fixed firmly upon its iron post, had cracked at the base and toppled, its fiery core extinguished by impact. Beneath its fallen frame lay the body of Mr. Lionel Fairchild, a distinguished veteran of the Adelphi Theatre, known for his commanding presence and resonant baritone, and by his side a scrap of parchment bearing a single inked fingerprint. Inspector MacLeod, a broad-shouldered man in a sodden greatcoat, greeted Poirot with a curt nod. "Monsieur Poirot, thank you for coming so promptly. We found him about an hour past. No sign of struggle, just the lantern, broken glass, and this strange note." He handed Poirot a small envelope. Inside was a slip of ivory paper, folded twice and impressioned with a smudged thumbprint in sepia ink. Poirot extracted a slender pipe and tapped the glass gently, revealing an elegant swirl of embossed lettering. F. D. Hastings peered over Poirot's shoulder. A clue dropped, Poirot, yet whose, and why leave only a fingerprint? Poirot arranged the note before him on an upturned crate. "Mon ami, the fingerprint alone is a signature, not a message. It declares presence. F.D. must be the initials of the one who left it." He touched the print with a gloved fingertip. Notice how the ink smudge suggests haste. An unsteady hand. Our author fled quickly, leaving no more than this token. MacLeod gestured toward the body. He was found in precisely this position, face down, head near the oil lamp's reservoir. No wound evident, but witnesses heard a cry and the crash of glass. By the time patrolmen arrived, smoke and rain had extinguished the lamp. He was already dead. Poirot crouched, studying Mr. Fairchild's face, pale and serene, as though long since detached from mortal pain. His threadbare coat lay open, revealing a well-tailored waistcoat. Poirot noted an ornate cufflink at the wrist, its surface etched with the crest of the Adelphi. He glanced up. Was he carrying anything else? The inspector shook his head. Wallet empty, watch correct, no letter or ticket. He arrived here on foot, according to a passing lamplighter. No one saw him enter a cab or attempt to flee. Poirot pressed a fingertip to the broken lamp's reservoir. A faint, oily aroma remained. The lamp's mechanism may hold our first evidence. The fall has cracked the bowl, draining the oil. But did the break happen before or after he collapsed? MacLeod frowned. We assumed impact caused him to fall dead. Perhaps he stood beneath the lantern, and it toppled, striking him. Ah, Poirot said, yet he shows no bruise above the temple. The skull intact, no fracture to speak of. He rose and tapped a finger upon the fallen lens. He must have inhaled something, or seen something, that destroyed life from within, not without. Hastings gasped. Poison? In the oil? Poirot raised a gloved hand. Perhaps. If the oil were tainted, a single breath near the lamp could have done the deed. But then why various witnesses heard only one cry, and not the telltale splutter of coughing? He walked to the body's side. Hastings moved to follow, but MacLeod cautioned, Keep back, this is a crime scene. Poirot knelt again, lifting Fairchild's coat lapel to reveal a small pin of tarnished silver. A theatrical mask, the emblem of the Fallen Theatre Society, an exclusive circle of actors and playwrights. Poirot turned the pin over and read a barely legible inscription. To LF from FD. Hastings' eyes widened. Our FD again! So someone from this society, friend or foe, left Fairchild this token, then ensured his death. Indeed, Poirot murmured, a token both affectionate and ominous. A personal gift turned into a warning. He stood and surveyed the scene. The fallen lantern, the theatre pin, the sole footprint, an ankle-deep shoe print trailing toward the park gates. In the dimming rain, Poirot's mind raced through the society's roster. Directors, playwrights, the lofty actress Madame Duval, and the brooding Mr. Frederick Danvers, always known as F.D. MacLeod, grimaced. Danvers is back from abroad, only last week. But he claims no quarrel with Fairchild. Poirot motioned to Hastings. Let us follow that footprint, inspect the lamp's oil, and then question the theatre circle. Each step may yet reveal the sequence of events, how the lamp was tampered, how Mr. Fairchild was lured beneath it, and how the final clue, this pin, was placed. As the lantern's broken fragments glimmered like scattered stars, Poirot's keen gaze flickered with determination. The rain fell steadily now, yet beneath the droplets lay the promise of revelation. Under the swaying lamp's ghostly flicker, one fact remained immutable. Justice, guided by the little grey cells, would illuminate the truth hidden in shadows. Thus began the first step of a new mystery. The clue under the falling lantern, and as Hastings adjusted his coat and followed Poirot into the mist, both men were keenly aware that within these rain-washed streets, the heart of human motive beat both darkly and bright, and that every flicker of light, however fleeting, could reveal the path to justice. Chapter 2. Tracing Footsteps in the Mist. The following morning, the streets of London were still damp with last night's rain, and a thin mist clung to the lamplit avenues. Captain Hastings and Hercule Poirot took a hansom to Scotland Yard, where Inspector MacLeod awaited them with a small vial of residual lamp oil and a handful of photographs. The wide, high-ceilinged laboratory smelled faintly of chemicals and antiseptic, an ironic juxtaposition to the lamplight-scented mystery they pursued. "Good morning, Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," MacLeod greeted, handing the vial to Poirot through a gloved hand. Our chemist, Dr. Mayhew, examined the sample. He found traces of aconitine, derived from monkshood, an exceedingly potent toxin. A single breath of vapour near the lamp could have induced convulsions and cardiac arrest within minutes. Poirot inclined his head thoughtfully, placing the vial upon the counter. Aconitine, he mused, noble in myth, malicious indeed, but it requires deliberate application. Our villain must have introduced it into the lamp's reservoir before, extinguishing the flame. MacLeod nodded gravely. We also recovered the footprint you noted last night. Photographs here show the tread pattern. A narrow sole, smiling heel cut, brand and size consistent with the custom brogues Mr. Frederick Danvers wears. He tapped the image of the print. We matched it to Danvers's shoe, confiscated for comparison. The correspondence is unmistakable. Hastings whistled. So F.D. stands not only for Frederick Danvers, but for felonious deed. Poirot smiled thinly. Yet suspicion alone must not be our guide. We require motive and opportunity. He turned to MacLeod. Monsieur, when did Danvers arrive in London? Last Tuesday. He claimed a holiday from the Folger Company in America, though he wrote only to Fairchild, requesting a private consultation regarding a forthcoming stage revival. Poirot tapped his fingertips. Consultation. A meeting prearranged beneath this lamp. How did Fairchild come to this obscure corner of Regent's Park? MacLeod consulted his notebook. Fairchild told acquaintances he had a clandestine benefit for the Theatre Society, a donation to finance apprenticeships. He chose that lantern as a rendezvous for privacy. Hastings brightened. Ah, so our victim walked here voluntarily, expecting to meet someone he trusted. Then, in the gloom, the lamp betrayed him. Precisely, Poirot agreed. Let us then confront Danvers with these facts, yet gently, for we require his confession beyond mere denials. By mid-morning, Poirot and Hastings had made their way to the home of Frederick Danvers in Bayswater, a genteel lodging adorned with theatrical posters and silk draperies. Danvers, a tall, elegant man with dark hair and a thin moustache, received them with polite alarm. He offered tea in a salon lined with play manuscripts and portrait photographs of himself in various roles. Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings. What, an unexpected honour! Danvers greeted, pouring the tea with graceful precision. I trust you have no cause to suspect me. Poirot studied him keenly, noting the slight tremor in his fingers as he set the tea tray aside. Mr. Danvers, we have reason to believe you met with Mr. Fairchild beneath a gas lantern in Regent's Park on Tuesday night. The lamp oil contained aconitine, and a footprint at the scene matches your brogues. Would you care to explain? Danvers's face blanched. He set his cup down without a tremor. I admit, I did meet Lionel Fairchild, an old friend, but I would never harm him. I intended only to discuss our revival of the Duchess's Lament. He owed me £200 from his last benefit. He took a steadying breath. I left him in good health. When the lamp fell, I was long gone. Hastings interrupted, but the lamp did not simply fall by itself. It was cracked at the base, suggesting deliberate sabotage. Danvers's brow furrowed. I heard no crack. I walked away while he read my letter. I did not linger. He frowned. Are you certain the footprint belongs to my shoes? I have 2 pairs of brogues. Poirot allowed a non-committal smile. The tread pattern and the leather wear mark correspond with the pair you left here for comparison. He held Danvers's gaze. Forgive my candour, but we must examine every possibility. Danvers stood abruptly. Monsieur, I will cooperate fully. If it will clear my name, you may inspect my entire wardrobe." He strode to a wardrobe and revealed a row of shoes, several pairs of black brogues, wingtips, and evening pumps. Poirot approached and inspected each sole, comparing to his mental images. He found only one set matching the print. Danvers watched, pale but firm. "I see you have your answer." Poirot then produced the scrap of note, this pin left by Fairchild at the scene. He held up a folded scrap of paper, bore the initials F.D., a signature of departure or visitation. Danvers's eyes darkened. "I gave him that pin last month, my courtesy gift. But he returned it, telling me it was tarnished. I did not expect it to reappear." Poirot nodded. "A gift turned token, used to mislead suspicion onto you. Yet, Mr. Danvers, you appear sincere. Perhaps the true culprit wished to frame you." Danvers exhaled. "If so, then I ask you to find him, for his crime corrupts our theatre circle." Poirot inclined his head. "Rest assured, you shall be exonerated if your innocence is proven." Departed, Danvers's relief tempered by lingering dread. Outside, Hastings lit his pipe. We may yet find a third actor, someone who despised Fairchild. Poirot nodded. "Yes, let us next examine the Theatre Society's last meeting. Such gatherings harbour rivalries and resentments." Back at Baker Street, Poirot laid out the dossier, a list of society members, minutes of meetings, and Fairchild's correspondence. He fingered the scrap of paper with the fingerprint. "Our next step. Invite these individuals for tea under the pretext of forming a committee to honour Fairchild's benefit. Observe their reactions." Hastings chuckled. "A social detective's trick. Bring them together and watch the sparks fly." The following afternoon, they assembled at the Adelphi Theatre's drawing room. Madame Duval, whose star had dimmed, playwright Helena Drury, whose final work Fairchild had criticised, and Mr. Percival Crane, a young actor passed over for leading roles. Each greeted Poirot with polite bows, uncertain eyes flicking to one another. Poirot poured tea with ceremonious care, then spoke. "We gather to form the Lionel Fairchild Memorial Committee. In honouring his charity, we must address the tragedy beneath the falling lantern." He paused, allowing the room's hush to deepen. Madame Duval's voice broke first. "I am devastated by Lionel's death. He was my dearest friend." She dabbed her eyes with a lace kerchief. Drury leaned forward, fingers steepled. "He destroyed my last play in rehearsal. I admit I resented him deeply." Crane swallowed. "He criticised my performance before the press. I wanted to teach him humility." Poirot allowed each moment to settle before turning to Crane. "Mr. Crane, your new shoes. May I see them?" Crane hesitated, then removed one shoe, handing it over. Poirot examined its sole, comparing it to the footprint photographs. Different brand, no match. He replaced the shoe. "Thank you." Drury next offered her boots, too narrow for the print. Madame Duval confessed she wore slippers at home. None matched. Poirot then asked, "Did any of you bring a small hairpin or lighting device to Tuesday's rehearsal?" They shook their heads. He rose, folding his hands. "Gentleman and lady, the true murderer is neither among those you fear nor those you defend. Look instead to the Society's secretary, Mr. Percival Finch." He fixed their gazes. He alone had both the key to the cabinet room, through his duties, and the means to neutralize the lamp's alarm circuit with a makeshift tool. His specialty is optics, and his fascination with poisons is no secret among close friends. Madame Duval gasped. Crane's jaw dropped. Drury's eyes widened in understanding. Poirot pressed a button, summoning the stage manager, who at his direction brought Mr. Finch in attendance. The society secretary stammered when confronted, and Poirot produced the U-shaped hairpin, the candle wick, and the residue of monkshood traces on Finch's coat cuff. Under intense questioning, Finch confessed he coveted the Persian manuscript for its illustrations on light and vision. He had lured Fairchild under the pretense of a benefit discussion, introduced aconitine into the lamp oil, and then left the evidence, his initials on the pin, to frame Danvers, his rival. As Finch was escorted away, Poirot addressed the society members. Justice must outlast deceit. Let us honour Lionel Fairchild's memory by keeping our craft pure, untainted by ambition. Later, on the desolate corner where the lamp had fallen, Poirot knelt to reassemble the shards. Hastings stood behind, lighting his pipe. "So it ends, Poirot," Hastings said softly. "A rivalry of souls, not of shadows." Poirot placed the last piece of glass into a small bag. "Yes, Hastings, under a falling lantern, a life was taken, but the light of truth shines brighter still." He rose, sliding the bag into his coat. "Let us return home, for while this mystery has closed, new cases await the warmth of little grey cells." And, as the mist lifted from Regent's Park Avenue, the pair departed into the morning sun, bearing both evidence and solace for London's ever-turning wheel of justice. Chapter 3. Truth Illuminated. The next morning, London's fog hung low, a pale veil over the city's grand facades. At 9:20, Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings arrived at the narrow side street where the fallen lantern had claimed Lionel Fairchild's life. A small cordon of police still marked the scene, though the damp prints of last night's turmoil were already fading under the light drizzle. Poirot paused at the lamp's broken post, hands clasped behind his back. Hastings knelt to inspect the scattered fragments of glass and the fractured reservoir. "Remarkable, isn't it?" Hastings murmured. "How one small piece of metal, one kernel of poison, could end a man's life." Poirot's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "And how, mon ami, that kernel must be illuminated by method and motive. Today we reconstruct the crime's precise sequence." He tapped his cane upon the cobblestones. "Let us begin. With the constable's permission." Poirot gathered the larger shards of the lamp's globe. Hastings held a canvas bag, into which Poirot placed each piece with meticulous care. "These panes," Poirot said, "were intact until the lamp was struck or removed. Note how the fractures radiate outward from the reservoir's base." He pointed to a hairline crack at the metal collar. "This break did not result from impact alone. It was weakened beforehand by a slender incision made, no doubt, by our perpetrator's slender tool." He waved the U-shaped hairpin, now cleaned of soot and stored in a small envelope. "Our secretary, Mr. Finch, used this implement to nick the lamp's metal until, at the appointed moment, the globe split under its own weight." Hastings peered at the hairpin. "Ingenious and deadly. Yet our victim inhaled aconitine vapours before the impact of glass, so the toxin did the deed and the fall masked it. Exactement. Poirot replaced the lamp's skeleton to illustrate. The maker filled the reservoir with scented oil, safe for breathing. But veneered upon that oil was our poison. A single drop of aconitine, dissolved in alcohol, spreads swiftly as vapour when heated. The lamp's wick, lit at dusk, dispersed the toxin into the immediate air. Fairchild inhaled it as he leaned to adjust his spectacles, then stumbled, triggering the lamp's collapse. He stepped aside, allowing Hastings to place the reassembled lamp upon a crate. Observe again the footprint here, cast in mud before the lamp's fall. Hastings knelt and traced the narrow sole print. This print, belonging to Mr. Finch, shows how he positioned himself behind Fairchild, careful not to be seen. Then, using the hairpin, he severed the lamp's stability and withdrew, leaving behind only his fading tread. Poirot retrieved the silver theatre pin from his waistcoat pocket. Our theatre pin, gift and guerdon to Lionel Fairchild, served as the final clue. By dropping it beside the corpse, our murderer declared authorship of the act. A brazen flourish. He turned it over so that Hastings could read the inscription, "To L.F. from F.D." Intended, no doubt, to pin the blame upon Frederick Danvers, his rival for leading roles and for the admiration of Fairchild's protégés. Hastings shook his head. Yet Danvers was above suspicion, if one cared only for surface evidence. Just so, Poirot agreed. But beneath surface evidence lay the true motive, Finch's covetous ambition for the Persian manuscript. By rid Fairchild of life, and by implicating Danvers, he achieved two ends at once. The book fell temporarily out of secure custody, and his rival bore the stigma of suspicion. With the scene thoroughly mapped, Poirot and Hastings proceeded to Scotland Yard, where Inspector MacLeod had detained Percival Finch overnight. In a small interview room, Finch sat shackled to a chair, haggard yet defiant. Poirot entered with measured steps. "Monsieur Finch," Poirot began, "you have confessed to poisoning Mr. Fairchild's lamp and staging the collapse to mask your crime. Yet you remain silent on your method of introduction. How did you place aconitine into the oil?" Finch's shoulders sagged in resignation. "I spiked the lamp's reservoir with a solution I prepared in my laboratory, just enough to be undetectable by sight. I then extinguished the lamp before Fairchild arrived, mixed the poison into the oil by swirling the reservoir, and relit the wick with a match I concealed in my sleeve." Poirot nodded. "And the lamp's internal alarm circuit, did you disable it?" Finch hesitated, then admitted, "I bent the hairpin and inserted it to bridge the circuit terminals, disabling the sensor. Then I removed it and used the same hairpin to weaken the lamp's collar." Poirot placed the hairpin upon the table. "Your meticulous preparation itself betrays your motive. You desired the manuscript. You coveted its illustrations on optical illusions to enhance your own treatise. When Fairchild balked at lending it, you resorted to murder." Finch closed his eyes. "Yes, you are correct." Later that day, Poirot accompanied Lord Blackthorne and the Iranian ambassador to the Oriental Club, where the precious treatise was stored under clamps and alarms. Blackthorne presented the recovered manuscript with solemn relief. The ambassador, dignified and calm, bowed deeply. Monsieur Poirot, you have preserved our heritage and prevented an international incident. We are in your debt." Poirot inclined his head. "I am honoured to serve." At Baker Street that evening, Poirot and Hastings sat by the hearth, closing the file on the clue under the falling lantern. Poirot made a few final notes. Finch poisons lamp reservoir with aconitine. He disables lamp alarm with hairpin. He relights. Lamp awaits Fairchild. Fairchild inhales toxin, collapses. Lamp falls of its own weakened weight. Finch drops theatre pin to frame Danvers and departs. Hastings poured 2 glasses of claret. "Another darkness dispelled by your brilliance, Poirot," he said, raising his glass. Poirot smiled. "Merci, Hastings. Yet darkness ever persists in human motive, jealousy, ambition, greed, and so long as it does, we shall stand ready to light the way." They drank in thoughtful silence, the lamp on the table flickering gently, its flame a small steady symbol that, unlike the fateful lantern in Regent's Park, would never betray the innocent, nor conceal the guilty. And as the city drifted into the hush of midnight, their work stood complete, if only until the next shadow beckoned them forth. Chapter 4. Echoes of the fallen lamp a week had passed since the Chamber's revelation, and London had already swallowed the tale of Lionel Fairchild's untimely demise beneath the Regent's Park lantern. Newspapers praised Hercule Poirot's swift detection. Society whispered of theatrical rivalries laid bare, and the Adelphi Theatre itself dedicated a commemorative evening to Fairchild's memory. Yet for Poirot and Captain Hastings, the mystery's final breath still lingered like the refracted glimmer of broken glass, an echo awaiting its quiet resolution. The morning sun sifted through the lace curtains of 221B Baker Street in muted beams, as though reluctant to intrude upon the detective's reverie. Poirot sat in his favourite armchair, pipe in hand, eyes fixed upon the little snuff-box picked up at the scene, a silent symbol of both tragedy and justice. On the table lay correspondence from the Iranian ambassador, expressing gratitude for the safe return of the Persian manuscript. It was a fitting testament to the small victory of truth over deception. Captain Hastings entered, steaming mug of Earl Grey in hand, his coat still damp from a brisk walk. "Monsieur Poirot," he began, perching on the arm of the chair. "It appears the world has settled back onto its axis. The Society has published minutes expunging Finch's name. Mr. Danvers is cleared, and the lamp is replaced. What remains for us?" Poirot lifted a finger in thoughtful repose. "My dear Hastings, every case casts ripples beyond its epicentre. We must ensure that the Kunstmann lantern, no longer a harbinger of death, now serves only illumination." He drifted into a gentle smile. "Let us pay another visit to the departed actor's family, and to the theatre circle, that they may find comfort in finality." Crossing the cobblestones to the Adelphi that afternoon, Poirot and Hastings found the theatre's manager awaiting them in the hushed grandeur of the foyer. He led them to Fairchild's widow, Lady Marjorie, an elegant figure clad in soft grey, her eyes still rimmed with tears, yet alight with gratitude. "Detective Poirot," she said, extending a slender gloved hand, "I cannot adequately thank you for unveiling the truth of Lionel's passing. He would have regarded that lamp as a stage unto itself, his final scene staged by a villain's guile. She paused, her voice trembling with emotion. "May I ask one favour? Would you and Captain Hastings join us tonight at the commemorative performance? Lionel's oldest role returns for one last gala, and your presence would honour his legacy." Poirot inclined his head. "Madame, it would be my privilege and my honour." Hastings bowed in agreement, resolved to attend in support. As they departed, Hastings commented, "You see, Poirot, justice doesn't merely exonerate the innocent, it soothes the bereaved." Poirot's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Yes, Hastings, and every heart finds solace when truth stands unveiled." That evening, under a sky washed in ink, the Adelphi's marquee shone with new brilliance. One night only, Lionel Fairchild in the King's soliloquy. Poirot and Hastings took their seats in the front row, where the velvet curtains rose on a stage draped in sombre black swags and a solitary spotlight. As the orchestra's prelude swelled, Lady Marjorie appeared in the wings, handing Poirot a single white rose, a token of his service and her enduring gratitude. The performance unfolded with haunting beauty. Actors glided through Fairchild's famed lines, each gesture a whisper of his spirited presence. When the climactic speech rang out, "For in my veins flows blood that spurns the chains of doubt," the theatre hushed as though the words came from beyond the grave. In that moment, Poirot felt the collective heartbeat of an audience both mourning and celebrating, unified by memory and by the solemn knowledge that a single clue beneath a fallen lamp had summoned them here. The curtains fall, the house rose in thunderous applause. Tears glistened on Lady Marjorie's cheeks as she joined the assembled cast for a final bow. Poirot and Hastings stood as well, offering their own tribute. Backstage, the manager embraced Poirot. "You have given us all closure, and more. Lionel's name shall endure in the annals of our theatre not as a victim, but as a beacon of artistry." Poirot replaced his rose in his lapel. Art, like justice, illuminates the darkest corner of the soul. He paused, recalling the fragment of manuscript smuggled into Finch's covetous hands, the optical treatise whose shadows had so nearly obscured life. May Lionel's memory guide us always toward light. In the quiet afterward, Poirot and Hastings strolled the damp streets toward Regent's Park, their breath visible in the still night air. Beneath the new lantern, its glass pristine, its flame untainted, they paused. Poirot knelt, touching the lamp's base with a gloved fingertip. This lamp, once the instrument of death, now stands sentinel over life. How delicate a balance. One drop of poison to take a breath. One small revelation to restore justice. Hastings placed a reassuring hand on Poirot's shoulder. "And you, my friend, restored that balance with nothing more than your wondrous mind and your little grey cells." Poirot rose, smoothing his coat. "Every case reaffirms that the human heart, though prone to error, still yearns for truth. And where truth glows, like this lamp's steady flame, warmth follows in its wake." They parted by the iron gates, each heading toward home. Hastings to his flat by the Thames, Poirot to the promise of a quiet supper and a well-earned rest. Yet even as they walked away, the lamp's golden glow followed them, casting long shadows behind, but illuminating the path ahead. The next morning, Mrs. Hudson bustled into the sitting-room with a tray of tea and scones. Poirot accepted his cup with a grateful nod, then glanced at the morning dispatches. A brief notice in the Times recorded the closure of the Fairchild case and the safe return of the manuscript. Concise, dignified, and unadorned by sensationalism. Poirot's eyes crinkled in approval. "As you see, Hastings," he said, setting down the paper, "justice has many forms. In print, it may appear but a footnote. In hearts, it echoes as a clarion call. And so we move forward, for wherever a lamp falls, there shall be those, like ourselves, ready to rekindle its flame." Hastings raised his teacup. "To rekindled flames, and to you, Poirot, the true illuminator of shadows." Poirot returned the toast, his eyes bright with gentle satisfaction. "And to you, Captain, the steadfast companion on every path of illumination." Outside, London's streets shimmered with possibility, awaiting the next whisper of intrigue. But within 221B Baker Street, the detectives savoured a moment of peace, secure in the knowledge that, beneath every fallen lantern, truth still flickered, ready to be kindled by the inexhaustible glow of their little grey cells. Chapter 5. Reflections Beneath the Lantern's Glow. The weeks that followed Lionel Fairchild's unveiling beneath the fallen lantern passed in a tranquil rhythm, as though the city itself, having let out a long shuddering sigh, found solace in the steady pulse of everyday life. London's gas lamps now burned brighter and steadier, their iron posts replaced and their globes tempered to a safer specification. At Baker Street, Poirot and Hastings resumed their familiar routine. Breakfast of Darjeeling, and toast, a morning stroll through Regent's Park, and an afternoon devoted to the quiet pleasures of reading and reflection. Yet, even in this calm, the detective's mind remained alert, ever attuned to the subtle cadence of human motive. One Tuesday afternoon, as rain tapped lightly upon the window-panes, there came a discreet knock at the door. Mrs. Hudson entered, carrying a small envelope sealed with lilac wax. "Monsieur Poirot, this arrived by hand," she said, placing the envelope upon the table. "No courier would give their name." Poirot bent to retrieve it. The wax seal bore the stylized lantern emblem of the Fallen Theatre Society. With a deft motion, he broke the seal and unfolded the parchment within. His eyes skimmed the elegant script. "Monsieur Poirot, I owe you a debt that cannot be repaid with words alone. Before my departure abroad next week, I wish to express my deepest gratitude. Meet me this evening beneath the restored lamp at Regent's Park Corner, and hear from one who owes you more than justice." F.D. Hastings looked over Poirot's shoulder. "Danvers again? He's in Italy, I thought, helping on that operatic production." Poirot folded the note neatly. "Frederick Danvers never ceases to surprise. His gratitude takes a dramatic form. Come, Hastings, adventure calls once more." That evening, lantern light shimmered upon damp stones as Poirot and Hastings approached the familiar corner in Regent's Park. The restored lamp's globe was pristine, the iron post recently painted, and a solitary figure stood beneath its glow. Frederick Danvers, clad in a tailored overcoat, his expression both eager and solemn. "Monsieur Poirot," Danvers greeted, bowing with theatrical flourish. I thank you for coming." Poirot inclined his head. Your letter suggested gratitude. Pray, speak freely. Danvers exhaled, stepping forward into the lamp's pool of light. I wished to express my personal appreciation. Lionel Fairchild and I, though rivals on stage, were friends in truth. His death left a void I could scarcely fill with performance. He paused, gaze flickering upward to the lantern. Your detection spared me dishonour and saved the society's name. But there is something more, a final request on his behalf. Poirot's eyebrows rose. On his behalf. Danvers reached into his breast pocket and produced a small leather-bound volume. This is Lionel's journal, his private diary, entrusted to me weeks before his death. He feared that certain entries, critical of society patrons who withheld support for apprenticeships, might surface, tarnishing the reputations of those he admired. He asked me to destroy it, but I could not bring myself to burn his words. Instead, I bring it to you, that you might judge whether to preserve or consign it to flames. Hastings stepped forward. Shall we read it, Poirot? Poirot took the journal reverently. We shall honour Mr. Fairchild's own wishes. Tell me what he wrote in the days before his meeting beneath the lantern. Danvers's voice caught. He wrote of hope. Hope that the benefit would secure funding for the next generation. And of sorrow at the rivalries that sometimes overshadowed our art. He named names, politicians, patrons, colleagues, with gentle reproach, urging them to act from compassion, not status. Poirot opened the journal to the final entries, reading in low tones passages that echoed the theatre's eternal struggle between vanity and virtue. The last page bore a single annotation. If this journal lives, may it serve as my testament to a world where art and kindness walk hand in hand. Poirot looked up, eyes soft. Mr. Danvers, Lionel's final wish was that these words inspire goodwill. I propose we publish selected passages under his name, with proceeds to the scholarship fund. Thus, his voice will guide future artists toward empathy. Danvers smiled through glistening eyes. A fitting tribute. Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. Back at Baker Street, Poirot set the diary upon his desk and penned a preface that would accompany its publication. A measured tribute to Fairchild's humanity and a gentle admonition to those in power. Hastings prepared a typescript of selected entries, careful to balance candour with discretion. When the volume, The Lantern's Flame, Journal of Lionel Fairchild, was released, it garnered quiet acclaim. Critics praised its eloquence. Philanthropists increased their donations, and young actors carried its pages in their coat pockets as talismans of purpose. In the weeks that followed, the Adelphi Theatre inaugurated the Fairchild Scholarship, granting bursaries to promising apprentices. A bronze plaque bearing Lionel's favourite quotation, "Our truest role is to serve others upon life's great stage," was mounted beneath the restored lantern. One Saturday evening, Poirot and Hastings returned to the lantern's corner for a final glance. The lamp's glass now bore a small inscription. In memory of Lionel Fairchild, may his flame light the path of generations. Beneath it stood a younger actor, one of the new scholars, pausing to read the dedication before hurrying toward the theatre doors. Hastings sighed contentedly. Look at him, Poirot, embarking on a career untainted by envy or spite. Poirot's moustache rose in a gentle smile. Yes, Hastings, And this, I think, is the greatest measure of justice, not only punishing the guilty, but nurturing the innocent. They lingered until the evening breeze whispered through the fall of leaves. Then, with one last appreciative glance at the lamp's glow, they retreated toward Baker Street, where a more mundane calm awaited. Tea, correspondence, and the quiet satisfaction of a case brought to its final harmony. In the glow of the lanterns, legacy justice had achieved its fullest form, not as a retribution that ends with the doors closing, but as a beacon that guides the living toward kindness, integrity, and the shared light of truth. And beneath that gentle glow, London breathed easy once more, secure in the promise that even after the darkest falls, the human spirit's flame endures. Chapter 6. The Final Curtain. Morning dawned pale over London, the sky veiled in mist as though reluctant to spotlight the city's secrets. Inside 221B Baker Street, Hercule Poirot sat at his small oval table, fingers steepled, eyes alight with the pleasure of a case well concluded. Captain Hastings bustled about, packing a travel satchel, a habit born of their mutual understanding. That repose must be ephemeral. Exactly what I was about to suggest, Hastings, Poirot remarked, observing the crumpled travel brochure cradled in his companion's hand. Our resolution of the fallen lantern affair merits a brief sojourn, away from gaslight and draughts, into the heart of Cornwall's emerald moors. Hastings grinned. Splendid. A fortnight by the sea, fresh air, and perhaps the occasional local mystery to keep the little grey cells amused. Poirot allowed himself a rare chuckle. Oui, mon ami. But first, we must tie the final knot on Fairchild's legacy. He rose to fetch the leather-bound ledger of the lantern's flame royalties. I have correspondence from the Adelphi Society's trustees. Donations have far exceeded expectations. They wish to dedicate a scholarship in your name, Hastings, for your indispensable assistance. Hastings's eyebrows shot up. My name? You'll have to arrange that to say Captain Hastings Scholarship, not Captain Hercules Scholarship. He struck Poirot lightly on the shoulder, then caught himself. Truly, I am honoured. Later that afternoon, they set out for the Adelphi Theatre once more. Its stage doors stood open, flanked by marble columns, and the lobby's scent of fresh paint and new velvet hung heavy in the air. Inside, they were greeted by Lady Marjorie Fairchild, whose grief had long since given way to determination. "Detective Poirot, Captain Hastings," she said, ushering them into the newly christened Fairchild parlour. "Thanks to your efforts and the publication of Lionel's journal, our finances now support not only apprentices, but touring companies, vitally important during the harder seasons." Poirot inclined his head. "Your success is but the fruit of Lionel's vision, Lady Fairchild, and of your devotion to his memory." She smiled, offering tea and biscuits. "We would not have reached this point without you. I trust you shall remain our honoured guests when the Gala of Lights takes place next month." "Nous serons là," Poirot assured her. Hastings nodded enthusiastically. Before departing, Poirot paused beside a framed photograph of Lionel Fairchild. In his prime, the fallen lantern faintly visible in the corner of the image. He laid a gloved hand upon the glass. "Farewell, Lionel. Your final act has illuminated many more than the stage, and your light shall endure long after we have tramped these boards." The following morning saw them aboard the Coastal Express, bound for Cornwall. The train curved through lush valleys, where primroses clung to stone walls and sheep-dotted emerald pastures. Hastings pressed his nose to the window, while Poirot consulted his travel guide, noting the location of the Shipwright Inn, a harbourside pub famed for its crab stew and harbour views. As the afternoon sun touched the sea, they alighted at Penzance Station. The harbour stretched before them, fishing boats bobbing gently, oystermen arranging their morning haul, gulls wheeling overhead. They stowed their bags at the inn and settled into seats on the terrace, where the air smelled of salt and wood smoke. Hastings raised his tankard of ale. To deep breaths and shallow cases, Poirot. Poirot smiled. To the sea breeze, Captain, and to the repose that follows a just resolution. His gaze drifted over the rippling water. Yet I sense the presence of a new puzzle. Do you not? Hastings laughed. You always sense it, Poirot, often where there is none. But come, the innkeeper promised us the finest crab stew west of Land's End. They dined in the cosy tap-room, candles flickering against oak beams. As they savoured their meal, a commotion outside drew their attention. Peering through the window, they saw dockside Constable Trelawney grappling with a dishevelled figure, while a small crowd gathered. Poirot rose and excused himself, Hastings close behind. On the quay, the stranger, an elderly mariner with tangled grey beard, clutched a battered satchel. "I'm telling you," he protested, "I found it floating in the water. My share, by Neptune's beard." Trelawney pushed the man back. "Put that down, Jenkins. That belongs to the customs, discovered in washed-up contraband." From the tide-worn barrel emerged a gleaming brass compass. Its lid etched with the initials L.F. Poirot approached, commanding the scene. "Monsieur Jenkins, your name appears in testimony as one of Fairchild's ship entertainers. An old sea chantyman. Is that compass yours to claim?" The mariner straightened, eyes bright. "Aye, sir. 'Twas Lionel's gift before his last voyage. The compass guided him through storm and fog. My heart says it belongs in the theatre's collection, but my stomach says I deserve salvage rights." Poirot exchanged a look with Trelawney. Customs law is clear on found goods, yet a magistrate might rule in favour of the finder, so long as no malefaction occurred. He turned to Jenkins. "How did it come to rest in the harbour waters?" Jenkins's face fell. "A storm near the breakwater last night. I saw the lantern's light glinting on the waves, though I mistook it for a lantern at sea. I fished for lines and hauled this up by accident." Hastings's eyes glinted. The lantern's light. "Ah, you thought you saw the lamp itself afloat." Poirot nodded. "An echo of the fallen lantern by chance. But we must ensure the compass is returned to Lady Fairchild before she names its next scholar." He offered Jenkins a reassuring nod. "You shall receive a reward for your honesty, and, if you wish, a theatre pass for life." Jenkins's weathered face broke into a grin. "I'd like that. God's grace, I would." Returning to the inn, Poirot and Hastings reflected on the serendipity of the compass's recovery. Hastings sipped his ale. "Even in rest we find echoes of justice." Poirot smiled faintly. "The world turns with many hands, some gentle, some rough. Yet each anomaly, even a found compass, speaks of order recovering from chance." They sat by the window as twilight fell, watching lamplight dance upon the harbour. In the distance, the restored regent's lantern would have been aglow, its steadfast flame a distant beacon. Here, the old compass recalled that light, guiding lost souls to safe harbour. That night, as Poirot drifted to sleep in the inn's upper chamber, he thought of Lionel Fairchild, actor, friend, poet of the pulpit stage. The notebook of the lantern's flame rested on his bedside table, as did the brass compass, bequeathed for safekeeping. In his dreams, lamplight flickered and waves lapped, each glimmer of glass and glint of brass offering fresh clues to justice's enduring pulse, and so the case of the clue. Under the falling lantern drew gently to its close, not with a final shout, but with the quiet affirmation that where light falls, be it gas or brass, justice, like the tide, will always return to reclaim what is right. Chapter 7. Secrets in the Compass. Shell Spring's first warmth had arrived in London when Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings stepped again into the hush of 33 Upper Wimpole Street. Their tour of Cornwall now a pleasant memory. The brass compass, rescued by old Jenkins from Regent's Park waters, rested upon Poirot's desk, its lid glinting in the morning light. Yet as he polished its surface, Poirot's little grey cells ticked, the compass's ornate engraving. Beneath its bezel, a tiny inscription half worn by time had not yet been examined. "Hastings," Poirot called, holding the compass between thumb and finger. "Observe this seam. The lid does not simply hinge, but rotates upon a hidden catch. I believe Lionel Fairchild, ever the theatrical showman, left us one final surprise." Hastings leaned forward. "You think it conceals something? May we?" Poirot pressed a slender nail into the engraving's curve. With a faint click, the bezel turned, releasing a hidden compartment beneath the dial. Inside lay a folded vellum, aged to ochre. Poirot's grey eyes sparkled. A letter, no doubt penned by our departed friend. They gathered at the lamp, and Poirot carefully unfolded the vellum. "My dearest confidant, if you read this, my lamp has fallen and my words remain unspoken in public. These lines reveal the true heart of my endeavour. The failing fortunes of the fallen theatre society, threatened by rich patrons' indifference. Enclosed is the key to the society's future, a list of names and donations I solicited in private. These contributions, if honoured, will secure apprenticeships for years to come. Posthumously, I entrust you, my friend, to see these pledges fulfilled." L. F. Poirot refolded the vellum, pressing a fingertip to the delicate script. Lionel's final trust, a list of benefactors unknown to all but himself. Without this, many pledges might remain unpaid, leaving the society to languish. Hastings whistled softly. Poor Lionel! He worried for the theatre even as he faced death. Poirot nodded gravely. "We must ensure these pledges are called upon. But first, let us identify the intended confidant. To whom was this letter addressed?" Hastings glanced around the cluttered desk. Perhaps it names the recipient. Poirot refocused. No salutation here. He refers to "my dearest confidant" in the abstract. Yet who among his circle would merit such trust? He tapped the compass lid. Danvers? He was close, but their relationship was theatrical rivalry more than intimacy. Jenkins? A loyal ship shantyman, but unlikely a banker's agent. No, This must be to someone in the Society's council. He thumbed through the Fairchild Parlour's guest book in his satchel. Let us compare names. By midday, Poirot and Hastings had assembled the Fallen Theatre Society's committee at the Adelphi in Fairchild Parlour, now restored for meetings. Lady Marjorie, president of the society, welcomed them with concern. "Detective Captain, you are back so soon?" she asked. "I trust your Cornwall visit was fruitful." Poirot bowed gracefully. "Indeed, madam. But we have discovered one final legacy of Mr. Fairchild, contained within his compass." He presented the vellum to Lady Marjorie. She read it, eyes widening. "Oh, Lionel, I did not know of these pledges." Her voice trembled. "He never spoke of them to me." Hastings cleared his throat. "We found the compass adrift, retrieved by Jenkins. Under its turning bezel lay this letter, naming a list of supporters requiring calls on their donations." Lady Marjorie glanced at her fellow trustees. Frederick Danvers, Helena Drury, and Percival Crane. Each regarded her and Poirot in turn, surprise and embarrassment mingling in their expressions. Poirot continued, "Mr. Fairchild's confidant must be one among you, someone to whom he disclosed this list. We have two tasks. First, to determine who received the original manuscript of pledges. Second, to ensure the Society collects these funds." Danvers stepped forward. "Madame, I received no such list. I knew only of Lionel's concern for apprentices, but he never entrusted me with documents." Drury shook her head. "He spoke of it in passing, but I assumed the pledges were guaranteed by the Society's treasury." Percival Crane hesitated. "He and we corresponded late at night about funding, but he never sent me anything." Lady Marjorie placed a steady hand on Crane's arm. "Percival, speak freely. You were his secretary. Surely he shared with you." Crane's eyes glistened. "Yes, he asked me to safeguard the pledges until the Society's finances wavered. I recorded the names in my own ledger, but Lionel insisted I burn them should I fear their misuse." His voice faltered. "I burned them, thinking the Society's official ledgers would suffice." A hush fell as Hastings exhaled. "So the pledges are lost." Poirot raised a gloved finger. "Not completely, mon ami. The vellum suggests the original list differs from the Society's books. If Crane burned his copy, Lionel's list, sealed in the compass, is the only extant record." Lady Marjorie's brow furrowed. "But Percival, why burn it?" Crane's face crumpled. "I feared a breach, someone defaming Lionel's reputation by revealing donors' names. I destroyed the ledger to protect him." Poirot inclined his head. "A misguided act of loyalty, now undone. Yet donors may be called upon a second time, if the Society so desires." Lady Marjorie looked around the room. "We must honour Lionel's memory by fulfilling his wishes. Shall we contact the patrons anew?" She turned to Danvers. "Frederick, will you oversee the list's distribution?" Danvers nodded thoughtfully. "With your permission, madame, yes. I shall draft letters requesting the promised support." Drury offered, "I will coordinate acknowledgements and public notices once the funds arrive." That afternoon, Frederick, Danvers and Lady Marjorie sat at a writing table, crafting elegant missives to the theatre's patrons. Bankers, merchants and titled gentry, whose names appeared on Lionel's list. Crane, pale but resolute, provided recollections of each pledge's amount. Hastings, enlisted to oversee logistics, sorted addresses and stamps. Poirot, leaning against the doorway, supervised with a satisfied air. By evening, the letters were dispatched, and the society's coffers awaited their arrival. The compass, its hidden secret revealed, was returned to Jenkins as a gesture of thanks. He would keep it in his cottage by the quay, a tangible link to Lionel's final act of friendship. The following week, the Adelphi buzzed with renewed vitality. Apprentices received notice of scholarships. The workshop's funds grew, and the society planned a benefit matinee in Lionel's honour. When the day arrived, Lady Marjorie invited Poirot and Hastings to the green room. They watched from the wings as the young actors, each a beneficiary of Lionel's pledges, performed a stirring tableau vivant of the king's soliloquy, gazes lifted toward an imaginary lantern. As the actors took their bow, the audience, a cross-section of donors, patrons, and theatre lovers, rose in heartfelt ovation. Poirot, standing beside Hastings, felt the warmth of Lionel's spirit suffuse the theatre. A light rekindled by truth, loyalty, and compassion. Hastings nudged. Poirot, look at them, Poirot, once lost, now found. All because one man cared enough to leave a clue under a falling lantern. Poirot's eyes gleamed. And because another cared enough not to destroy the clue wholly. He tapped his cane lightly. Compassion, Hastings, often lies in the balance between zeal and discretion. Today, equity is restored. That evening, as candles flickered upon the mantel of Baker Street, Poirot recorded the final entry in his little black notebook, the clue under the falling lantern. A conspirator's cunning, a friend's final testament, and the resurrection of pledges once thought lost. Justice reveals itself not only in punishment, but in restoration. Here ends the tale of Lionel Fairchild's lamp, his journal, and the compass's hidden missive, woven into the triumph of art and charity. Hercule Poirot. He closed the notebook, placing the brass compass atop it, a symbol of guidance, both literal and moral. Hastings joined him with 2 glasses of port. To guidance, Hastings toasted, and to the little grey cells that see beyond the obvious. To guidance, Poirot replied, lifting his glass. And to those who dare to preserve truth in the hidden chambers of the heart. They drank in companionable silence, the night's hush a benediction upon the city's teeming life. Outside, the lamps burned ever brighter, their steady glow a promise that beneath every fallen shade, justice and kindness would find their way to the light. Chapter 8. The Lantern's Last Reflection. The waning daylight filtered through the tall sash windows of 33 Upper Wimpole Street as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings returned from the Adelphi Theatre's triumphant benefit matinee. The season had slipped seamlessly into early summer, and with it the promise of long evenings and warm breezes. Yet, in the softly lit drawing-room, the pair found that the shadows cast by the lamp upon the mantel seemed somehow more intimate, as though the spirit of Lionel Fairchild lingered in the golden glow. Poirot set the brass compass upon the small reading table, its lid polished to a patina that gleamed in the late afternoon rays. Hastings removed his hat and coat, placing them upon the stand by the door. "Well, Poirot," he said, tilting his head toward the compass, "we have fulfilled Lionel's final wish, ensured the pledges were honoured, and watched a new generation of actors emerge. Is there any task left undone? Poirot pressed his fingertips together in quiet satisfaction. Our duty, mon ami, is complete in the material sense. Yet I find my heart still stirred by one lingering question. How does art, which Fairchild so loved, continue to shape human character long after the last curtain falls? He paused, tracing the compass's inscription with a gloved finger. Perhaps the answer lies not in action, but in reflection. Hastings poured 2 cups of tea and handed one to Poirot. They settled into armchairs by the window, the soft hum of London life drifting upward from the street below. For a time, they contented themselves with the comfortable silence that follows a well-won victory. At last, Hastings spoke. "You've solved far more than a murder, Poirot. You stewarded a man's legacy, ensuring his memory kindled hope, not scandal." He tapped the compass. This little object guided us to truths buried beneath layers of rivalry and fear. Poirot smiled gently. True, a compass, after all, not only shows direction, but reminds us of one's bearings in the wider world. Lionel's testament was a moral compass as much as a literal one. He leaned back, eyes distant yet focused. And so, Hastings, I propose we commemorate this journey in the only fitting way, by gathering those whose lives Lionel brightened and letting them speak of the lantern's light, its physical flame and its metaphorical brilliance. Hastings raised an eyebrow. A symposium of recollections. A small gathering of the Adelphi Circle. Precisely, Poirot replied. A modest meeting in this very room, where actors, patrons, apprentices, and indeed old Jenkins himself may share their favourite memories. It will be an evening of remembrance rather than spectacle, a final benediction upon this case's conclusion. The following week, the drawing-room of Upper Wimpole Street welcomed an intimate assembly. Lady Marjorie Fairchild presided at a small card table, her bright shawl a subtle echo of her late husband's optimism. Frederick Danvers, Helena Drury, and Percival Crane sat in a semicircle of chairs. Young beneficiaries of the Fairchild Scholarship filled the remaining seats. Jenkins, the ship chanteeman turned theatre devotee, occupied a corner, wearing his weathered cap with pride, and Inspector MacLeod, unaccustomed to social events, stood by the mantel with polite curiosity. Poirot welcomed them all with an impassioned address. Mes amis, we gather not to mourn, but to honour the light that Lionel Fairchild placed within each of us. A single lamp may flicker briefly, yet its glow can ripple outward, illuminating paths we never suspected. Tonight, let each share a memory of how Lionel's flame guided your course. Hastings, seated at Poirot's side, passed small cards and pencils to the audience. One by one, attendees rose to speak. Helena Drury was first. Her voice quavered momentarily before steadying. Lionel was my fiercest critic and my greatest champion. When my script faltered, he met me with compassion, teaching me that a critique is but a lantern, guiding us toward our best work. She paused, eyes shining. I shall carry his guidance like a torch in every play I write. Percival Crane followed. He cleared his throat. As his secretary, I witnessed his tireless efforts to secure funds for apprentices. He treated each young actor as if he saw the next great star, encouraging with equal warmth the timid novice and the confident aspirant. He gave me faith that theatre is built upon the dreams of the next generation. Young Eliza Penrose, a scholarship recipient, stood trembling slightly. "He once invited me to practice a monologue in his study," she said, clutching her card. "He told me that the stage is a place of truth, where one's heart may speak boldly. Because of him, I found courage to audition, and now I perform with confidence." Jenkins shuffled forward next. His deep voice carried through the hush. "Lionel taught me an old chanté I thought lost to time. He said music, like a lantern's light, guides sailors home. In my later years, I sing it to children in the orphanage, reminding them that hope endures." He winked at Hastings. "Even if my feet can no longer dance a jig." Inspector MacLeod, clearing his throat, added, As an officer, I see the darkness of human folly. But Lionel's case reminded me that justice is not merely punishment, it is also restoration. Because of him, a man's name was cleared, trusts were honoured, and a culture of generosity was fostered." He nodded to Poirot. "Your work saved more than a life. It revitalised a spirit." At last, Lady Marjorie rose, placing a hand on a framed replica of Lionel's compass beneath the lantern's image. "My friends, Lionel's lantern burns still, in our memories, our deeds, and our compassion. Let us honour his legacy by carrying that light forward." She signalled Jenkins, who dimmed the room's electric lights and lit a single candle in a brass sconce, a symbolic lantern's glow. In that flickering luminescence, Poirot lifted his cup in a silent toast. The room filled with the soft rustle of gratitude and the gentle flicker of flame. Outside, Regent's lamps shone steady against the spring dusk, each casting its reach across the waking city. When the gathering ended, guests departed into the night, carrying small brass replicas of the compass as mementos of Lionel's trust. Poirot and Hastings remained alone. The final flicker of the candle burnt low. Hastings broke the quiet. "A fitting tribute, Poirot. You have orchestrated a finale more moving than any stage play." Poirot smiled, eyes reflecting the candle's dying light. "Art and justice, Hastings, both strive to illuminate the human condition. When joined by compassion, they create a symphony of hope." He tilted his head at the compass, and in the turning of this compass shell, we found the true direction of loyalty. They extinguished the candle together, allowing the ashes of wax to scatter like fallen petals. As they descended the stair and stepped into the cool night, the restored lantern beyond the threshold glowed unwavering, its pool of light a quiet testament to a story concluded at last. Within Baker Street's familiar embrace, the quiet fell once more. But this time it was the hush of hearts made full, of legacies secured, and of lamps kept lit by the steadfast faith of friends. And as Poirot and Hastings prepared for slumber, they carried with them the certainty that wherever a lamp falls, truth will rise again, its reflection everlasting in the human soul. Chapter 9. The lantern's last legacy spring had burst into full bloom by the time Poirot and Hastings returned to Upper Wimpole Street for the 9th gathering in Lionel Fairchild's memory. The city's plane trees were thick with pale green leaves, and London's lamps, once dreaded harbingers, now stood as silent sentinels of renewal. On this particular afternoon, the compass, once a vessel for a dying man's testament, lay open on the reading table beside Fairchild's leather-bound journal, its hidden compartment empty, but for the warm echo of purpose. Inside, the drawing-room was arranged for an unusual event, a scholars' tea, to which Lady Marjorie Fairchild had invited the first cohort of Lionel's scholarship recipients. Framed photographs of the inaugural performers, Eliza Penrose, Percival Crane, and 3 others, adorned the mantel, each marked by a small brass plaque bearing the inscription, "Guided by the lantern's light." The room shimmered with the laughter of young actors, the murmur of their stories, and the soft clink of china. Poirot stood near the window, cane in hand, observing the scene with quiet contentment. Hastings approached with a tray of sandwiches and petits fours, carried by Mrs. Hudson herself, looking freshly pressed and delighted to be of service. "Voilà, mon ami," Hastings whispered, offering Poirot a cucumber sandwich. "These scholars owe their careers to Lionel's foresight and your deft detection." Poirot accepted the sandwich with a delicate nod. "True, Captain. Yet today is not about a detection. It is about nurturing the next generation, those who will carry Fairchild's lantern forward." As the scholars clustered around Lady Marjorie, each took turns recounting how the scholarship had changed their lives. Eliza Penrose spoke first, her voice still sweetly tremulous with excitement. "Lady Marjorie," she began, glancing at Poirot and Hastings, "I applied for the scholarship, hoping only to pay tuition, but because of it, I performed my first London debut." Her eyes glistened. "I saw Lionel's compass in my mind that night, guiding me toward each cue and each bourre. Without it, I would have trembled on stage." Percival Crane, ever the gentleman, added his reflection. "In my case, the scholarship allowed me to work under Helena Drury's mentorship. She taught me the subtleties of character, how a droop of the shoulder or a twitch of the hand can reveal a lifetime of emotion. That lesson, given freely, was Lionel's true legacy." The other 3, Margaret Sinclair, an aspiring tragedy actress, Edward Blythe, a gifted comic, and Rosa Mendez, a budding playwright, each described scenes of scholarship-funded workshops, rehearsal spaces, and the confidence gleaned from knowing someone believed in them. Their gratitude was palpable, and Lady Marjorie, seated at the head of the table, had tears in her eyes. Poirot rose then, raising his teacup in salute. "Mes amis, tonight you carry the light of Lionel Fairchild's compassion. May that light guide you through every role, on stage and in life." He paused, allowing the warmth of his words to settle. "And may you, in turn, extend that light to others who follow." The scholars' applause echoed in the cosy room, mingling with the soft patter of the newly opened window, through which birdsong drifted from the garden below. After the tea, Hastings escorted the young actors into the garden, where a small fountain sculpted in the shape of a lantern poured crystal water into a shallow basin. Jenkins, now a regular visitor, sat nearby on a bench, his ship-worn cap set gently beside him. Strolling past the flowers, Hastings caught Jenkins's eye. "How are you, Jenkins? Still singing those sea chantés?" Jenkins chuckled, patting his throat. "Aye, lad, the scholars taught me new tunes too. Salmon of Song, they call me." He winked, but truth be told, I look forward to seeing their names in lights, where Lionel's light first guided me. Hastings nodded. "You're a mentor in your own right, Jenkins, as Lionel would have wished." Meanwhile, Poirot joined Lady Marjorie by the lantern-shaped fountain. She held a folded vellum, the one he had retrieved from the compass's hidden chamber. "I thought it fitting to share Lionel's letter with the scholars," she said softly. "They've known themselves its beneficiaries, yet they have never seen his own words." She handed the letter to Poirot, who read it once more with reverence. When he finished, he spoke. "This letter reminds us that charity is both seed and harvest. Lionel planted seeds of hope in your hearts. Now you bear the fruit in every performance." Lady Marjorie touched the fountain's stone lip. "I have arranged for the letter to be transcribed into each scholarship certificate, so every beneficiary carries his words." Poirot inclined his head. "A beautiful tribute, and thus Lionel's lantern shall never dim." That evening, as twilight draped the city in gentle violet, Poirot and Hastings prepared to depart. The scholars had dispersed, promising invitations to first nights and recitals, and Lady Marjorie had seen them off with firm embraces. The brass compass, now empty of secrets yet full of significance, rested on Poirot's desk, a silent companion to their departure. "Are you certain you do not wish to stay for Lady Marjorie's private dinner?" she had asked earlier. "There will be fine food and recollections aplenty." Poirot had smiled his modest smile. "My dear lady, a simple carriage ride with Captain Hastings suffices. Our work here is done." They had bid farewell amid lamplight's gentle glow, stepping into the cool evening with hearts warmed by camaraderie. Walking down Upper Wimpole Street, Hastings paused beneath the lamps, their globes shining without fear. "Poirot, it never ceases to amaze me how a single act of malice beneath a lantern can be transformed into decades of hope." Poirot tapped his temple. "Such is the paradox of human affairs, Captain. Darkness and light often reside in the very same place, yet it is our choice, like the turning of a compass shell, to follow the light." He paused beneath a lamp, gazing upward. The final reflection of Lionel's lamp burns now in these scholars, in the scholarships, and in the compass's memory. Hastings clapped his companion on the back. "Then onward to home and rest. Until the next case, may your little grey cells dream of lanterns and compasses." Poirot allowed himself a rare, contented sigh. "And may your spirit, Captain, ever guide us toward kindness." They resumed their stroll, lantern-lit reflections dancing at their feet, the compass's legacy sealed in every grateful heart. And in the steady glow of those gas-lit avenues, where every lamp stood as a silent promise that justice, compassion, and art would continue to illuminate the darkest corners of life. Chapter 10. The Lantern's Enduring Light. The first blush of dawn found London awash in soft gold, each gas lamp's glow lingering like a memory in the quiet streets of Upper Wimpole. Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings emerged from 221B Baker Street as two figures accustomed to the rhythms of justice and the promise of a new day. For weeks they had shepherded Lionel Fairchild's legacy from tragedy through redemption, guiding the compass's hidden testament into the hands of those it was meant to serve. Yet even as the last scholar's laughter faded from the drawing-room, both detectives sensed that a final note remained unsung. one last reflection upon the lantern's enduring light. They walked side by side toward Regent's Park, the damp cobbles still reflecting the passing carriage lamps. Hastings, adjusting his scarf against the morning chill, spoke first. "Poirot, after all we have done for the society and the scholars, what more could remain? The lamp has been replaced, the compasses list honoured, and the theatre's future secured." Poirot's eyes twinkled beneath the brims of his hat. "Indeed, mon ami, the outward disturbances have passed, yet I wish to revisit the very corner where Fairchild's life was claimed. There, beneath the stately new lantern, we shall pay homage to the man and the mystery that united us all." The path to the lamp-post was strewn with petals from spring, blossoms, each tiny bloom like a silent benediction. As they approached, Jenkins, the former ship chantyman turned theatre mentor, stood waiting in his threadbare cap. He carried the brass compass in a small velvet pouch, a final gift to the detectives who had restored its secret. Upon recognizing them, he bowed respectfully and offered the pouch to Poirot. "Detective," Jenkins said, voice hushed with reverence, "this compass guided Lionel's testament and saved many young lives. Now, I entrust it to you for safekeeping, until the next soul finds itself lost in darkness." He paused, gazing at the lamp's freshly polished globe. May its glow always find a path to truth. Poirot accepted the compass with gratitude. He slipped it into his breast pocket and placed a gentle hand upon Jenkins's shoulder. "You have carried Lionel's light with honour and generosity, my friend. Your vigil here ensures that hope endures." His quiet words lifted the old chantyman's spirit, and Jenkins nodded, tears glimmering at his eyes. Hastings looked skyward as the morning sun burned through the mist. There is a serenity here that was absent on that dreadful night. He bent to trace the foot of the lamp-post, now bearing no mark of past violence. Once that lamp betrayed Lionel. Now it stands as sentinel for every redeemed aspiration. Poirot inclined his head. "Yes, Captain. Justice, when joined with compassion, transforms instruments of harm into beacons of hope. And so long as the lantern stands, fair winds will guide the arts and hearts toward the light." A carriage rumbled by, and with it the promise of life's continuing dance. Jenkins turned to depart, his footsteps echoing against the granite curb. Poirot and Hastings watched him leave, then together retraced their steps through the winding pathways of the park. By midday, they found themselves at the Adelphi Theatre, where final preparations for the Gala of Lights, a festive celebration of Fairchild's memory, were underway. Lady Marjorie Fairchild greeted them in the ornate foyer, her cheerful composure belying the sorrow that had once shadowed these halls. "Detective Poirot, Captain Hastings, how wonderful to see you both here." She swept a hand towards the stage, where striking lantern motifs and banners declared, "In honour of Lionel Fairchild, light the way. Tonight we shall renew the Society's vows to art and charity, and I wish you to be our guests of honour." Hastings raised his eyebrows in pleasant surprise. "We would be delighted, Lady Fairchild." Poirot offered a modest bow. "Your hospitality warms the heart as surely as any lantern's flame." They accepted her lead into the orchestra pit, where the conductor rehearsed the overture. The musicians paused to greet Poirot, each offering words of personal thanks. Some recalled Lionel's mentorship. Others spoke of the scholarship's vital support. Wise veterans of the stage, they respected the detective's role in safeguarding their community as much as any judge's decree. As daylight faded into evening, the velvet curtains of the Adelphi drew back to reveal a grand tableau. Dancers in lantern-patterned costumes, their arms mimicking the gentle sway of flame. Singers whose voices wove a tapestry of hope, and actors delivering poignant lines proclaiming the eternal value of art. Lady Marjorie herself took the stage for a final speech, gilded by the lights overhead. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice strong and clear, "tonight we celebrate not death, but renewal. Lionel Fairchild's lantern once fell, and yet his light was reborn, in scholarship, in compassion, and in every heart touched by his legacy. Let us carry his flame into the future, ensuring that art continues, to guide, inspire, and heal." A hush settled before the audience rose in a standing ovation punctuated by whistles and cries of acclaim. Poirot, seated beside Hastings, allowed himself a rare moment of pure contentment. The path from darkness to light had been long and winding, yet here, at its culmination, he felt the subtle harmony of justice and generosity resonating like a perfect chord. After the performance, as guests dispersed beneath the glittering marquee, Poirot and Hastings lingered backstage. Frederick Danvers approached, his eyes bright with emotion. "Monsieur Poirot, on behalf of Lionel's Circle, I present you with this." He handed Poirot a small crystal phial, its surface engraved with a miniature lantern. Inside is the flame of the first lamp Lionel commissioned for the Society Hall, a symbolic ember to remind us that his light endures in every heart. Poirot cradled the phial as though it contained the very soul of artistry. "You honour me beyond measure, Monsieur Danvers. I vow to protect this flame, as we have protected Lionel's memory." He paused, then added, "and to kindle it anew in times when shadows gather." At last, Poirot and Hastings departed the theatre into a gentle London night. The streets shimmered with promise, each gas lamp glowing steady against the prelude of dusk. They walked in companionable silence until they reached Baker Street, where Mrs. Hudson awaited with a warming tray of cocoa and biscuits. Securing the crystal phial in a small cabinet by the hearth, Poirot settled into his armchair, the day's labours folding into soft repose. Hastings joined him, offering a grin and a biscuit, no longer needing words to fill the comfortable hush. Outside, the lamps continued their silent watch, their light undiminished by the passing seasons. In the end, the case of the clue under. The falling lantern had revealed more than a murderer's cunning. It had illuminated the profound capacity of one man's final act to reshape destinies, kindle dreams, and transform instruments of despair into beacons of hope. And as the night deepened, Poirot allowed himself the rare indulgence of contentment, secure in knowing that wherever lamplight shone, justice and compassion would follow, and that the lantern's last legacy would burn forever in the human heart. Chapter 11. Twilight at Upper Wimpole late June enveloped London in a soft embrace of warmth and perfumed air. The plane trees of Upper Wimpole Street rustled gently as evening settled, and the gas lamps kindled themselves in quiet tribute to the day's last light. Within the familiar walls of 33 Upper Wimpole Street, Hercule Poirot sat before the hearth. the crystal phial containing Lionel Fairchild's inaugural lamp flame, reflecting prismatic glimmers across the polished wood floor. Captain Hastings reclined in an armchair opposite, feet propped upon a footstool, contentedly nursing a glass of sherry. "Mon ami," Hastings began, swirling the sherry in its glass. "It seems an age since Fairchild's lamp first fell beneath. That cursed lantern! And yet each step, from the poison in the reservoir to the hidden pledges in the compass, carries fresh resonance in my mind." He smiled wryly. "Tell me, Poirot, do you ever tire of revisiting the past?" Poirot tapped, his cane upon the hearth's edge, moustaches quivering with serene amusement. "Ah, Captain, the past is a lantern in itself, each recollection a ray of light that guides us through the shadows of human motive. Yet tonight I propose we turn our attention to the present. I have received a letter from Lady Marjorie Fairchild, inviting us to an opening of the new Fairchild Theatre School, founded upon Lionel's scholarships. It shall be held tomorrow afternoon in Soho." He folded the letter with care. "Will you accompany me?" Hastings set down his glass with a nod. "I thought you'd never ask. A theatre school! How fitting that Lionel's light now illuminates young lives so directly." He rose and stretched. "Let us make ready." The following day, the streets of Soho thrummed with anticipation. A tasteful marquee, white and gold, announced the Fairchild Theatre School grand opening. Poirot and Hastings entered to find Lady Marjorie awaiting them beneath a swag of crimson curtain. Her eyes shone with pride and gratitude. "Welcome, gentlemen," she said, offering each a programme printed upon ivory cardstock. "Your guidance has brought us to this moment. The school will train actors, directors, and playwrights alike, ensuring that Lionel's compassion flourishes beyond any single stage." Poirot inclined his head. The dedication of this institution honours not only talent, but the spirit behind it. He glanced at the nameplates on the lectern. Percival Crane, Head of Acting; Helena Drury, Literary Director; Frederick Danvers, Voice and Movement Coach. Jenkins, cheered as Master of Chance and Traditional Performance, stood among the faculty, his face alight with purpose. Hastings grinned. A stellar roster indeed. He tapped the programme. "The first recital is by Eliza Penrose, performing Fairchild's favourite monologue. Shall we take seats on the front row?" They did so, surrounded by recent scholarship recipients now auditioning for faculty positions. The lights dimmed, and Eliza stepped forward in modest black, her presence steady despite the large audience. As she delivered Fairchild's words, "In my memory's lantern, I carry each spark of hope," the room hushed, and Poirot felt the same hush of reverence that had long ago attended the fallen lantern. When she finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. Lady Marjorie rose to speak. "Eliza embodies the heart of Lionel's legacy. Courage, generosity, and unwavering service to art." She nodded toward the faculty. "Join me in dedication of the Fairchild Theatre School." Together, they drew back the crimson curtain to reveal an ornate bronze plaque. "In honoured memory of Lionel Fairchild. May his light illuminate every stage." After the ceremony, Hastings and Poirot were ushered backstage to a reception. Lady Marjorie greeted them with tea and petit fours. "You see, gentlemen, the school's first term is fully booked. We have young talents from across the empire, Actors from Sydney, playwrights from Cape Town, dancers from Calcutta. Lionel's vision transcends borders. Poirot sipped his tea, eyes bright with satisfaction. His final testament, discovered in that compass, has indeed become a global beacon. He turned to Jenkins, who stood nearby in quiet wistfulness. "Jenkins, you must be proud," Poirot said. "From ship shantyman to master of chance, you embody the breadth of Lionel's compassion." Jenkins's weathered hand gripped Poirot's. "I follow his lantern still, detective." His voice cracked. "May it never dim." That evening, Hastings and Poirot strolled through the neon-lit streets of Soho, the bustle of theatres and cafes a lively hum around them. Hastings paused beneath a row of marquees. "Poirot, of all the outcomes, justice served, scholarships granted, a theatre school opened, this is perhaps the most joyous. Where next, do you think?" Poirot adjusted his bowler. "The world, mon ami, is full of lamps fallen and compasses turned. But tonight, let us simply cherish the light that remains." He nodded toward a small chapel of St. Martin's Lane, its stained-glass windows aglow. Perhaps a moment of contemplation, and then back to Baker Street for tea. Hastings laughed. "A contemplative end to the day. Very like you, Poirot." Back at Baker Street, Mrs. Hudson welcomed them with fragrant Earl Grey and warm scones. Poirot placed the Fairchild compass upon the mantel alongside the crystal phial of lamp flame. "These tokens," he murmured, "remind us that every crime solved bears within it the promise of renewal." Hastings settled into his armchair. "A promise fulfilled many times over." He took a bite of scone. "So, detective, what shall we do with these relics now? Keep them here?" Poirot considered. "They shall remain as ornaments of justice and compassion. Yet their true place is in the school's exhibit room, a reminder for every student of art's power to transform." He rose and, retrieving a blue voucher from his pocket, handed it to Hastings. "I have arranged for the compass and the phial to be lent to the Fairchild Theatre School for their museum. Returned for any future inquiry, of course." Hastings accepted the voucher with a grin. "That seems appropriate." He paused, studying the compass. "I'll miss their steady presence here." Poirot smiled. "Fear not, mon ami. Wherever the flame burns, the spirit of Lionel Fairchild endures, and so, in a way, shall these relics remain within our souls." He placed his hand over his heart. "Now, let us rest. Tomorrow, new shadows may beckon, yet tonight we celebrate the light." Outside, the lamps of Upper Wimpole Street glowed unwavering. Within Baker Street, the pair sat in companionable silence, the distant murmur of theatre crowds a lullaby of possibility. And so, beneath the steadfast glow of Justice's lantern, another chapter closed, its legacy cast like a compass's needle, forever guiding hearts toward hope. Chapter 12. The Beacon of Apprenticeship. Summer's golden haze had settled over London when the Fairchild Theatre School prepared for its first apprenticeship showcase, an evening meant to highlight the talents nurtured by Lionel Fairchild's legacy. Across Soho's labyrinthine streets, theatres and studios buzzed with final rehearsals, while shopkeepers draped the marquees in crimson and gold. For Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings, this night promised not only entertainment, but the fulfillment of every promise they had helped secure. Late afternoon found Poirot and Hastings at the Fairchild School's rehearsal hall. an elegant loft of polished wood floors and tall arched windows that spilled sunlight upon rows of newly built seating. Lady Marjorie oversaw final notes with Frederick Danvers and Helena Drury, each faculty member poised with measured enthusiasm. Jenkins leaned against the back wall, tuning a battered accordion repurposed for a modern arrangement of a sea chanté. Poirot surveyed the scene with approving eyes. Behold, Hastings, the crucible of promise, where raw talent takes shape under devoted care. He tapped his cane. Tonight's showcase shall not only reveal their accomplishments, but stand as testament to the enduring power of theatre to uplift. Hastings grinned, adjusting his bow tie. And to think it all began with a poisoned lamp and a hidden compass. Danvers approached, clearing his throat. Monsieur Poirot, everything is in order. Miss Penrose's monologue, Mr. Blythe's comedy sketch, and the group tableau are ready for final run-through. He glanced at Jenkins, and Jenkins has prepared an encore chanté, Fairchild's Lantern, to close the evening. Jenkins nodded earnestly. A humble tribute, sir. He lifted his accordion with a shy smile. Poirot inclined his head to each. Bravo! Now, if you will excuse us, Hastings and I shall prepare seats for our distinguished guests, diplomats, critics, and patrons who pledged through Fairchild's list. They filed into the corridor, where Hastings selected seats in the front row, ensuring a clear view of the stage. Poirot placed a card beside each. Reserved for the Honourable Sir Reginald Stafford, Mr. Ahmed Al-Farouki, Lady Eleanor Pembroke, and others whose names had graced Lionel's compass list. At 7 o'clock, the house lights dimmed and a hush fell. Poirot and Hastings rose to take their seats as the red curtain parted to reveal Eliza Penrose centre stage. She wore a simple grey frock, the stage's single lantern casting her in soft light. In the quiet, she delivered a stirring recitation of Desdemona's Willow Song, her clear voice weaving sorrow and hope until the audience sat breathless. Next came Edward Blythe's original sketch, a comedic exchange between two highwaymen. His timing was impeccable. The jailers in the front row doubled over in delight. Hastings muttered to Poirot, "He's inherited Fairchild's knack for timing." Helena Drury, seated beside Lady Marjorie, whispered, "He studied Lionel's mannerisms closely." Poirot simply nodded, eyes twinkling at Blythe's final pratfall. The group tableau followed, a living picture of Prospero and Miranda rendered with statuesque grace. Percival Crane, as Prospero, gestured toward the winged shadows, and Rosa Mendes's Miranda knelt in wonder. A single frozen moment, captured by starlit follow-spot, evoked pure theatrical magic. The applause that followed felt timeless, as though London itself paused to honour the memory of the man whose legacy had made this possible. At the evening's midpoint, Lady Marjorie returned to the stage to introduce guest speaker Mr. Ahmed Al-Farouki, a patron whose matchless generosity had funded the school's advanced workshops. A diplomat from Egypt, he spoke of art's universal power. In every land, he began, voice resonant, the lantern of theatre shines upon the human condition. Lionel Fairchild understood this better than most. His vision transcended culture and creed, uniting us in laughter, in tears, and in compassion. Tonight, as you see these young actors ascend, remember that their brilliance was kindled by generosity, and that your own light, if shared, may guide generations to come." The convocation hall echoed with respectful silence, then fed into heartfelt applause. For the night's climax, Jenkins shuffled to centre stage, accordion in hand. As the first notes of Fairchild's lantern rose, the apprentices, some young, some newly graduated, joined him, their voices blending sea chantés with modern harmonies. The lyrics, penned by Jenkins himself from Fairchild's fragments, spoke of guiding stars and steadfast hearts. Poirot watched from the wings, tears glinting in his eyes. As the final chord faded, the stage swelled with roses cast from balcony seats, white and gold blooms that fell like confetti. The audience rose to its feet, the crescendo of whistles and cheering bridging past and present. In that moment, the lantern's light, both literal and metaphorical, burned brightest in every heart. Later, after the crowds dispersed, Poirot and Hastings returned backstage. Lady Marjorie, her shawl clasped by the rose's scent, embraced them both. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," she said, voice thick with gratitude. "You have more than solved a mystery. You have safeguarded a dream. Tonight, Lionel's dream lives in each of these artists, and in every soul they shall inspire." Poirot bowed deeply. "Madame, the true mystery was not the lamp's collapse, but how one man's compassion could endure beyond death." He dipped his head toward the compass pin stitched to his lapel. "In guiding those who followed, Lionel's light has become our beacon." Hastings, smiling broadly, added, "And may it never dim." They left the theatre under a sky spangled with stars, the evening's echoes drifting through Soho's narrow passages. As they walked to Baker Street, Hastings paused beneath a still-burning lamp-post. "It seems fitting," he said softly, "that even these lamps, once the site of tragedy, now shine steadily as emblems of renewal." Poirot tipped his hat. "Indeed, Captain, justice and compassion conspire to kindle new lights where darkness once reigned." He placed a hand over his heart, and thus the lantern's enduring legacy is complete. A circle drawn from tragedy to triumph, from one man's final breath to a chorus of hopeful voices. In the hush of the night, each lantern's glow whispered promise of tomorrow. For Lionel Fairchild's light, first extinguished by poison and fall, now flickered anew in every scholar's heart, and in every lamp that burned steadfast against the dark. Chapter 13. Under the lantern's open sky summer's zenith, lit London in a brilliance that defied the city's usual grey palette. The sidewalks thrummed with tourists and residents alike, and the plane trees on Upper Wimpole Street cast dappled patterns on the pavement below. Yet for Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings, the most radiant spectacle awaited them not beneath gilded facades, but under the open sky of Regent's Park, where once stood the fallen lantern that had touched off a journey through treachery to triumph. At dusk, they made their way to the park's edge, following the winding path that led to the very corner of that fateful crime. A low iron fence now enclosed a small circular plaza, newly laid with cobblestones polished to a gentle sheen. In its centre stood a sculpted lamp-post modelled after the original, but without glass, its simple iron arms supporting a ring of flowering vines that climbed towards the lantern's crown. Around its base, benches of carved stone invited reflection. Poirot, his waxed moustaches illuminated by the last rays of sunlight, nodded to Hastings. "Mon ami, tonight we witness the inauguration of the Fairchild Lantern Memorial, a living monument to both a man's loss and a society's rebirth." He brushed a fingertip along the wildflowers, drifting in the breeze. "Let us not forget the poison and the plot, but rather the light that emerged beyond them." Hastings smiled, surveying the assembling crowd. Lady Marjorie Fairchild, her shawl a luminous shade of violet, welcomed scholars, patrons, and neighbours. Frederick Danvers, Helena Drury, and Percival Crane stood near her side as faculty and friends. Old Jenkins, in his proud cap, sat on a bench, drumming softly on the cobblestones, humming Fairchild's lantern under his breath. Inspectors and dignitaries in evening wear mingled with excited apprentices, each clutching programmes for the dedication ceremony. A hush fell as Lady Marjorie stepped forward, candle in hand. The flame, blessed earlier by Father Thomas in the chapel, would be used to light the lantern's eternal wick. Poirot and Hastings took positions beside her. Poirot with the crystal phial containing that first lamp flame. Hastings holding the bronze key to the lantern's fuel chamber. Lady Marjorie raised her candle high. "Friends," she began, voice unwavering, "tonight we gather under this open sky to honour Lionel Fairchild's enduring gift. The knowledge that art, like light, guides us through darkness. This lantern stands not as memorial to death, but as testament to life, kindled by compassion, fanned by generosity, and sustained by every hand it warms." She paused, her gaze sweeping the circle. "May its flame, ignited from Lionel's own spark, never falter." At her nod, Poirot uncorked the phial, its golden contents glimmering. Hastings lifted the key and unlocked the lantern's base, revealing a brass reservoir. Carefully, Poirot poured the oil, observing the ribbon of flame that sank into the wick. Hastings secured the reservoir and locked it once more. With a single breath, Lady Marjorie leaned forward and lit the lantern's wick from her candle, its flame rising in a soft gold glow. As the lantern's light filled the plaza, an eruption of applause rippled through the assembled company. Children erupted in cheers, scholars clasped hands, and even the uniformed inspectors smiled broadly. Jenkins began a gentle drumming cadence, and soon voices joined in song, a benediction of Fairchild's lantern that rose into the dusky sky. Poirot watched the flame dance amid the climbing vines, the silhouette of the lamppost etched against the twilight. "See, Hastings," he murmured, "how a single light can unite so many hearts, each drawn to its warmth." He placed a gloved hand over his heart. Justice revealed the plot, charity sustained the cause, and now art celebrates the continuity of hope. Hastings nodded, eyes bright. "An evening worthy of every act we have witnessed, and more." He leaned in. "You know, Poirot, your compass and that phial have seen more scenes than any theatre. Perhaps they deserve their own stage tribute." Poirot smiled at the jest. "Perhaps, Captain, but for tonight let us simply honour the moment." He raised a hand in farewell to Jenkins, whose drumming had become a gentle heartbeat under the lantern's shine. Lady Marjorie then took the podium again, inviting a young scholar, Marcus Llewellyn, to speak. Timid at first, Marcus found courage beneath the lantern's glow, declaring, "This school, this community, this light, all exist because one man refused to let his lamp die untended. Let us carry his flame beyond this plaza, into every theatre and every heart that seeks warmth." His words evoked tears among the apprentices, and another wave of applause followed. The ceremony concluded with Lady Marjorie distributing sapling lantern vines, small potted plants that each attendee could plant in their own gardens, symbolizing the spread of Lionel's light into the wider world. Hastings received one for his country cottage. Poirot accepted a pale lavender vine, a reminder of Lady Marjorie's morning hues now transforming into colours of new life. As the crowd dispersed and lanterns flickered into the night, Poirot and Hastings lingered by the bench where Jenkins had drummed. The old man rose and offered each detective a potted plant, his eyes shining. "This vine," Jenkins said, voice thick with emotion, "is a living testament to Lionel's light, rooted in tragedy, blossoming in hope. Plant it, well, and watch his legacy grow." He patted Hastings on the shoulder. "And you, lad, keep playing that tune. Let its echo remind you of our journey." They accepted the plants with solemn gratitude, then bade Jenkins good night. The two friends strolled back toward Upper Wimpole, street beneath the lantern's lingering glow, its reflection mirrored in their steady stride. Hastings glanced at the vine nestled in his arms. "We've come full circle, Poirot. From poisoned oil to planted vines. Who would have thought the journey so fraught would end in such verdant promise?" Poirot's moustache twitched in quiet joy. "The beauty of human endeavour, Captain, lies in its capacity to transform poison into purpose and fall into flourish. Under the lantern's open sky, we have borne witness to the steadfast endurance of the human spirit." They returned home to find Mrs. Hudson awaiting them with warm cocoa. Poirot placed his vine upon the window-sill, its leaves reaching toward the gas lamp's glow. Hastings set his vine by the hearth, where the lamp's reflection played across the floor. As they sipped their cocoa, both knew that soon the lamps of Baker Street would go dark, to be replaced by morning sun. Yet the lantern in Regent's Park, and the vines they carried, would continue to burn and grow, bearing Lionel Fairchild's light far into the future. And so, beneath the enduring canopy of gas lamps and starlit skies, Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings rested, secure in the knowledge that where one lantern falls, 1,000 seedlings may rise, and that the true measure of a life is not in its final breath, but in the countless flames it kindles in others. Chapter 14. Ripples of the Lantern's Light. Summer's full chorus had given way to autumn's golden hush, when Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings found themselves once more at the heart of London's theatre community. The Fairchild Theatre School had celebrated the first cohort's graduation in June. Its halls now echoed with the promise of fresh talent and new productions. Yet for both detectives, the indelible mark left by Lionel Fairchild's fallen lantern and the hidden compass that revealed his final testament continued to cast ripples far beyond any single stage. One crisp September morning, a slender, Envelope arrived at 221B Baker Street, embossed with the seal of the British Museum. Inside lay a letter from Sir Reginald Stafford, Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. Dear Monsieur Poirot, on behalf of the trustees of the British Museum, I request your presence at the unveiling of a special exhibition, Illuminating Legacies, the Lantern, the Compass, and the Art of Hope. It opens next week in the Enlightenment Gallery and will feature the artifacts from the Fairchild case, alongside other objects that have shaped history. Your insights into the narrative behind these items would be most welcome at the opening gala. Yours sincerely, Sir Reginald Stafford Poirot tapped his cane thoughtfully against the carpet as Hastings read the letter. Mon ami, it appears our humble compass and the crystal phial of lamp flame are destined for greater recognition. The museum wishes to frame Lionel's legacy within the broader tapestry of human endeavour. Hastings's eyes brightened. How? Splendid! The lantern story alongside the Rosetta Stone and the Magna Carta. What an honourable company! Indeed, Poirot smiled. Let us prepare for an evening amid scholars, curators, and statesmen, where our little case will stand as an emblem of how art and compassion illuminate even the darkest mysteries. A week later found them touring the new exhibition before the gala. The Enlightenment Gallery, supported by white marble pillars, now housed 3 pedestals beneath a glass dome. On one rested the bronze model of the lantern post, entwined with vines. On another, the brass compass, its secret compartment once again sealed. And on the third, the crystal phial containing a single drop of Fairchild's original lamp flame. Dr. Amelia Lovell, curator of the exhibit, guided them through. Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, it is an honour to present these items among our most cherished artefacts. Each tells a story of transformation, from grief to generosity, from secrecy to revelation. She led them past interactive panels that recounted the lamp's fall and restoration, the compass's hidden missive, and the ripple effect of scholarships. Poirot examined the compass with reverence. A simple device, yet within it lay a man's final hope and the means to secure a future for countless artists. His gaze moved to the lantern model. We're here, a broken lamp's rebirth as a living monument, a reminder that through justice and compassion, what once heralded death now celebrates life. Hastings lingered at the phial. Hard to believe this single drop sparked so much change. Dr. Lovell nodded. Your detective work uncovered the truth. Lady Marjorie entrusted us with these artefacts, and we are proud to share Lionel Fairchild's legacy with the world. That evening, the gala reception unfolded beneath a starlit painted ceiling. Handel's water music drifted from a string, quartet by the grand staircase as champagne and oysters circulated among London's finest. Poirot and Hastings entered under the canopy of alabaster lamps, greeted warmly by Sir Reginald himself. Detective, the Commissioner embraced Poirot. Your case has struck a chord far beyond London's theatres. Tonight, the lantern's fall is a beacon for every seeker of truth. Poirot inclined his head. Merci, Sir Reginald. The lantern led us not only to a murderer, but to the discovery of humanity's capacity for renewal. Hastings, ever the social lion, grinned broadly. And to the pleasures of mingling among such renowned company, they followed Sir Reginald to the Enlightenment Gallery, where the artefacts gleamed like jewels in their glass sanctums. A hush fell as the Commissioner addressed the gathering. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we honor not merely objects of curiosity, but the stories they embody. The brass compass once concealed a dying man's testament. The lantern's flame once heralded murder, yet now shines as an emblem of hope. May we, as custodians of history, learn from their transformation and carry forward the light they lit. Applause echoed beneath the vaulted ceiling, and Poirot and Hastings exchanged quiet smiles of satisfaction. Amid the hum of cultured conversation, the evening felt like a grand pageant of renewal, each guest carrying within their hearts a spark rekindled by Lionel Fairchild's legacy. As the gala progressed, Eliza Penrose approached Poirot, her gown a deep midnight blue, her arm laden with white roses. Fairchild's favourite. She pressed a single bloom into his hand. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "thank you for illuminating Lionel's testament. Because of you, my career, and those of so many others, has been given life." Poirot bowed, humbled. "Mademoiselle, your talent was always yours. It merely ensured the seeds Lionel planted found fertile ground." He touched the rose gently. "May this bloom always remind you of the guiding lantern." Hastings embraced her next, smiling as her gratitude warmed the grand hall. They let her drift back into the throng. Another ripple of Fairchild's light set free. Later, as conversation softened, Poirot and Hastings lingered before the glass dome. The compass, lantern and file stood as silent witnesses to a tale, far richer than any page of history. Hastings turned to Poirot. "Do you ever worry, my friend, that these artifacts might eclipse the living spirit behind them?" Poirot regarded the glowing displays. "Artifacts can inspire, Hastings, but they can never replace the human heart. Recall how the scholars spoke of courage and mentorship. Their voices, not these objects, are Fairchild's true legacy." He placed a hand upon the compass's glass. "These relics are but signposts, reminders of what we can achieve when justice, charity, and art unite. The real light shines in every student who holds a script with confidence, in every scholar who treads the boards with passion." Hastings nodded, satisfied. "Then let us toast to the light within us, rather than the lamps above us." They joined Sir Reginald for a final glass, toasting beneath the glow of exemplars of human ingenuity, from ancient manuscripts to modern lanterns. Their cab took them home beneath the city's glowing lamps, each a silent greeting along the way. Hastings looked out at the passing streets. "Another celebration behind us, Poirot, but I feel we've earned a good night's rest." Poirot placed his hand upon his heart, where the brass compass pin rested like a badge of honour. "Indeed, Hastings, tonight we saw how a single lamp, once the instrument of death, became the wellspring of so many hopes, and that is the greatest mystery solved. Not who wielded poison, but how we transformed darkness into enduring light." They arrived at Baker Street, welcomed by Mrs. Hudson's gentle smile and the promise of warm cocoa. Poirot carefully arranged the compass and crystal file upon the mantel, their presence a beacon even within his own home. In the end, the tale of the clue under the falling lantern revealed far more than a murderer's cunning. It illuminated the human spirit's resilience, how compassion and art can transmute sorrow into hope, how one man's final act can kindle a beacon guiding a multitude, and how beneath every fallen lantern a new light awaits discovery. And as Poirot and Hastings slipped into peaceful slumber, they carried the certainty that truth and kindness, once kindled, burn long after the flames of tragedy have faded. Chapter 15. The shadow over the lantern's light. The first frost of November had silvered London's rooftops by dawn, transforming Regent's Park Avenue into a scene of frosted quiet. Beneath the newly enchanted canopy of bare plane trees, the Fairchild Lantern Memorial stood solemn and bright, its incandescent glow undimmed by the cold. Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings, wrapped in heavy coats, paused at the iron fence that encircled the cobblestone plaza. Around them, early morning joggers and newspaper vendors passed without noticing the two men's intent gazes. Hastings broke their reverent silence. "The lantern shines as if untouched by time, Poirot, yet your expression betrays unease." Poirot's slender fingers tapped his cane against the frost-hardened stone. "Mon ami, the lamp's flame endures, but I sense a disturbance, an anomaly among our tranquillity." He surveyed the lantern's base, noting that the wrought-iron panel bore a fresh scratch along one edge. Hastings stooped to inspect. "By Jove, you're right. A scrape through the paint and varnish. Someone has tried to force it open." There, concern deepened when Hastings spotted a small scrap of vellum wedged in the grillwork, a remnant of the compass's hidden letter pouch. He extracted it carefully. The vellum's folded corner bore a single scrawled word, "Exposed." Poirot's grey eyes narrowed. "A challenge, Hastings. A message from one who believes the compass and its secret should be revealed, or suppressed." First light, Poirot dispatched a note to Lady Marjorie Fairchild, requesting her presence and that of Inspector MacLeod at 33 Upper Wimpole Street. Meanwhile, he and Hastings examined the lantern more closely. The scratch matched the edge of the bronze key precisely. Possession of the key would allow one to open the reservoir and access the lamp's oil. Our criminal either seeks to steal the original lamp oil or to destroy the flame, Poirot mused. In either case, an act against Lionel's legacy. Hastings shivered as a cold wind whipped across the square. But who would dare? After everything, after the school, the scholarships, the exhibition, who would attack the very symbol of hope? Poirot tapped his temple. Anyone with motive to plunge us back into darkness. A rival theatre company, a disgruntled patron, or even an opportunist seeking to profane the compass's secret. He replaced the vellum in a small envelope. "We must safeguard the lantern and the artifacts. Archive the compass and the file at the museum until we unmask the culprit." By mid-morning, the drawing-room at Baker Street bristled with activity. Lady Marjorie stood beside Inspector MacLeod, whose presence lent official authority to the concern. When Poirot presented the scrap of vellum, her face paled. "This is Lionel's hand, his favourite vellum. It must have come from the compass's compartment." Inspector MacLeod took careful notes. "We'll post a 24-hour guard at the plaza and increase patrols around the museum exhibit." Hastings offered to coordinate with Jenkins to rally volunteers from the theatre school. Lady Marjorie nodded gratefully. "Thank you. But first, Monsieur Poirot, what do you propose?" Poirot spread a map of the plaza before them, Marking the scratch and the vellum's discard point, we shall stage a discreet watch at nightfall, disguising our presence among visitors. The perpetrator will return to finish the act, either theft or desecration, and we shall catch him by the lantern's light. That evening, cloaked in their dark overcoats, Poirot and Hastings joined Jenkins, now outfitted in a sturdy coat, and 2 theatre students assigned as lookouts. They settled on benches beneath the memorial, each keeping a lantern of their own to remain inconspicuous. Lady Marjorie, in a nearby carriage, watched through binoculars with Inspector MacLeod's aid. The lantern's flame winked invitingly, as if challenging them to protect it. Hours passed in chilly vigil. At 9:30, the plaza fell silent, save for the distant hum of traffic. Then, beneath the sweep of lamplight, a figure approached. Tall, wrapped in a heavy cloak, hood drawn low, Hastings signalled to Poirot. The stranger moved deliberately toward the lamp-post, key glinting in hand. As he knelt to insert the key into the panel's lock, Poirot stood silently, cane in hand. Hastings moved to block the path. The man froze, horror dawning as the torchlight revealed his face. "Dr. Samuel Ellery!" Poirot exclaimed. "I should have suspected. Your tenure at the theatre school was brief, yet you had access to every backstage secret." Ellery's jaw clenched. "You detectives ruined me," he spat. "I invested in theatre productions that collapsed, while Fairchild's scholarships funded my rivals. I sought vengeance, first by seizing the lamp's oil, to snuff your symbol of hope." Hastings guided Ellery to his feet, while Jenkins and the students rushed to remove the key. Inspector MacLeod and Lady Marjorie's carriage drew up. MacLeod snapped on handcuffs. "Dr. Ellery, you are under arrest for attempted theft and malicious damage to public property." Ellery's shoulders sagged. I only wanted to prove that the lantern's light could be extinguished by human spite." He glared at Hastings. "But you snatched my chance." Hastings shook his head. "No one owns that light. Lionel Fairchild gave it to all of us." At the police station, Poirot secured a statement from Ellery, who confessed to scrawling "exposed" as a final flourish. He admitted to forging credentials to teach at the school, then using his access to duplicate the bronze key's shape. He had no intent to harm, only to steal the oil and destroy it at the midnight gala, depriving the theatre elite of their false optimism. Poirot delivered the key and vellum scrap to Inspector MacLeod. "Your work is not done, Commissioner," he said. "May your officers remember that symbols often demand protection as much as they inspire." MacLeod nodded. "Indeed, Detective. We'll press charges, and the courts will decide Ellery's fate." Returning to Baker Street, Poirot and Hastings found Mrs. Hudson awaiting them with hot toddies. The warmth of brandy and spices revived their chilled spirits. Hastings exhaled. "Well, Poirot, I did not expect a chapter of vandalism, but the lamp stands unmarred, its flame unwavering." Poirot smiled, cradling his toddy. "In every story of darkness, there arises a test of resolve. Tonight, we passed that test, and reaffirmed Lionel Fairchild's gift." He looked toward the mantel, where a small photograph of the memorial glowed by lamplight. "The lamp will continue to shine as long as hearts stand watch." Hastings sipped his drink. "A fine closing note. And now, my friend, may the little grey cells rest, at least until the next flicker of intrigue. As the fire crackled and London's lamps burned steady outside, Poirot and Hastings settled into quiet contentment, knowing that justice had once again protected the legacy of light, and that, beneath every fallen lantern, the human spirit stood ready to rekindle hope. Chapter 16. Echoes Beneath the Dome. When the week dawned with quiet promise, London had all but forgotten the scare at Regent's Park. The Fairchild Lantern Memorial glowed undisturbed each night, and the newly opened British Museum exhibition, Illuminating Legacies, continued to draw admiring crowds. Yet to Hercule Poirot, peace was often a prelude to fresh mischief. Early Thursday morning, a terse note arrived at 221B Baker Street. Monsieur Poirot, your presence at the British Museum is urgently required. Something has gone missing from the Enlightenment Gallery. I can say no more by line, but fear a breach of the very mysteries you helped reveal. R.S. Poirot's grey eyes sparkled beneath his finely parted moustache. He summoned Captain Hastings, who joined him in the drawing-room, stable tea in hand and an eager glint in his eye. Hastings handed Poirot the note. The exhibit pieces, the compass, the file, or the lantern model? Let us discover which and how, Poirot murmured. I suspect that when one flame endures, another might flicker. He rang for Mrs. Hudson to summon a hansom, and they were soon rattling towards the British Museum beneath November skies. Inside the grand foyer, Sir Reginald Stafford awaited them, concern etched upon his brow. Beside him stood Dr. Amelia Lovell, the curator, her expression fraught with unspoken alarm. The Enlightenment Gallery's tall windows glowed pale in morning light as they entered the hushed space. At the central display, a cluster of patrons and museum staff had gathered, murmuring uneasily. Poirot surveyed the triad of pedestals beneath the glass dome. The bronze lantern model remained in place. The brass compass rested unmoved, but the crystal phial lay conspicuously empty. A thin smear of wax along the phial's well testified to its removal. Hastings gasped. They've taken the phial, Fairchild's own lamp flame. Dr. Lovell swallowed. Yes, detective. We discovered the oil's drop missing at dawn. All else is undisturbed. The thief knew exactly what to take. Sir Reginald pressed a hand to his temple. Security footage shows a figure in evening dress slipping past the guards at midnight. The cameras in this wing were disabled for precisely 3 minutes. I must ask you to examine the scene. Poirot knelt beside the pedestal and examined the glass case. No fingerprints marred the crystal surface, but someone had forced open the small lock, once accessible only by the bronze key. Hastings pointed to a scrap of paper tangled in a fold of cloth at the base of the dome. Poirot retrieved it with a white-gloved hand, a fragment of vellum bearing a single word in Fairchild's script, rekindle. He examined the word, turning it slowly. A directive, or a demand, that the flame be rekindled elsewhere, perhaps, in defiance of its intended permanence. He looked at Dr. Lovell. Have the other artefacts been safeguarded? Dr. Lovell nodded. The compass is secured in our archive vault, and the lantern model is undergoing structural review. Only the phial is missing. Sir Reginald sighed heavily. What do you propose, detective? Poirot rose to his full height, cane in hand. We must review the footage and its gap, Then question those with both motive and access. Someone connected to Fairchild's circle seeks to possess or to destroy his final gift. We shall begin with the security staff, then the society trustees, and finally those whose own ambitions might have clashed with Lionel's legacy. First, they visited the museum's control room, where technician Smythe tapped anxiously at a bank of monitors. Smythe's coat was turned inside out at the pockets, every tool removed. He fidgeted under Poirot's gaze. "Tell me," Poirot said quietly, "who disabled the cameras between midnight and 12:03? Smythe swallowed. I did so at the request of a gentleman who said he would deliver the file to safety. Wore a cloak and spoke of protecting its flame from those who would misuse it." His eyes shone with worry. "He paid me £10 and offered a private pardon, just for that moment." Poirot's brows rose. "Describe him." He was tall, slender, and wore a crimson scarf, like Lady Marjorie's, but richer in hue. His accent was neither British nor familiar foreign, but tinged with something theatrical. Smythe drew a hand across his brow. "He frightened me. He said the lantern's light must rekindle the spirit of theatre, not remain imprisoned here." Hastings scribbled notes. "A theatre connection and a cloak. My suspicions turned to someone from the Fairchild circle." Poirot nodded. "Yet the ransom of a lamp flame is unusual. A man wishing to resurrect Lionel's spirit might steal the file, but why instruct the technician to hand it over? Clearly, our thief believes in the symbolic power of that drop, more than in concealment." They departed with Smythe's trembling statement, seeking next the museum's security chief, Miss Caldwell. She wore her uniform with stern dignity. "Miss Caldwell," Poirot asked, "who had authority to request camera shutdown?" She produced a letter signed by Sir Reginald Stafford himself, an order for temporary maintenance, though Sir Reginald claimed no knowledge of the file's removal. The letter's timestamp matched the window of the theft. Poirot studied it. "The letter is genuine, but was it delivered by a courier of your choosing?" She bit her lip. "No, someone slipped it under my door at 11:59. Poirot tapped his cane. "Thus our thief forged the hand of authority, quite brazenly. Let us now see who might profit from the file's disappearance." Their inquiries led back to the theatre school, where Lady Marjorie's office revealed a fresh layer of tension. Frederick Danvers, Helena Drury, and Percival Crane stood together, flushed with indignation. "Detective, we too were alarmed," Lady Marjorie said. "If the file leaves its pedestal, the exhibition itself will collapse in scandal." She turned to Danvers. "I fear someone among us, perhaps wanting to rekindle Lionel's flame on a rival stage." Danvers's jaw clenched. "I would never. Our school owes everything to his legacy." Drury shook her head. "Neither would I. There are no secrets here." Crane spoke quietly. "Unless someone outside the school wishes to place the flame in a more charismatic setting." Poirot raised an eyebrow. "Ah, do you mean the rival companies, those once critical of Fairchild's scholarship awards?" Lady Marjorie released a shaky breath. "There were rumours that some actors felt, overshadowed by the scholarships, that their own careers suffered." Hastings nodded. "A motive of envy, a desire to possess the file as proof of supremacy." Poirot steepled his fingers. "Let us return to the museum tonight at closing. Inside the dome, we shall place a watch, not among the guards, but under our own careful eyes. The thief will return, confident in his forged authority. That evening, Poirot, Hastings, and Inspector MacLeod concealed themselves in a maintenance alcove behind the gallery wall. Dr. Lovell and Miss Caldwell kept watch by the entrance. The hours ticked by in near silence until a distant echo of footsteps heralded the thief's return. At precisely midnight, a figure in dark cloak and crimson scarf slipped through the glass doors. He stepped onto the gallery floor, holding a small lantern of his own. The thief approached the display, brandished a forged key, and bent to unlock the compass's pedestal instead of the file's stand. Hastings stifled a gasp. Poirot beckoned him to wait. The man's mistake would yield his identity. The thief's fumble caused him to pause and peer more closely. In the dim light, Poirot recognized the rich cut of the cloak, the refined curve of collar, and the familiar bearing of Lancaster Bell, a critic whose reviews once disparaged Fairchild's remounts. "Bell," Poirot whispered. His pen cut deeper than any blade. Now he believes the flame belongs to him, to revive his own waning influence. As Bell retrieved the wrong key, Inspector MacLeod and Miss Caldwell closed in. Realizing his error, Bell raised a gloved hand in surrender, crimson scarf falling to reveal a pallid face of fury and desperation. Poirot emerged, cane tapping the marble. "Lancaster Bell, you have been adjudged a critic of fire without understanding its warmth. Tell us, what did you intend?" Bell's shoulders slumped. "I wanted to relight what I believe to be the true spirit of theatre, outside these walls, where my voice might guide the public." His eyes glistened with regret. "I forged orders, paid the technician, and meant only to carry the flame to a travelling troupe. I never intended to destroy it." Poirot nodded. "Yet the path of misguided zeal often crosses the line into theft. Your punishment is a matter for the courts. But know this, the flame you coveted belongs to every artist, Fairchild honoured." By dawn, Lancaster Bell was in custody, his crimson scarf exchanged for prison garb. The museum secured the file once more, and Sir Reginald issued a statement reaffirming the exhibition's integrity. At Baker Street, Poirot and Hastings shared a quiet breakfast. Hastings sipped his tea. So even after all this, someone tried to steal Lionel's testaments again. Poirot set down his cup. A flame visible to all yet possessed by none. Its lure remains potent. But each attempt only reminds us of the light's value. He gazed toward the window, where morning sun glinted off the frost. "And so, Hastings, our work continues, to watch over lanterns, compasses, and the human hearts they guide." Hastings grinned. "I'll keep my eyes open. No frosted benches or moonlit plazas shall escape my notice." Poirot's moustache twitched in wry amusement. "Excellent. For as long as lamps burn in London streets, there will be mysteries to solve, and we shall kindle the flame of justice wherever shadows fall." Chapter 17. The Lantern's Last Testament. The first light of dawn filtered through the lace curtains of 221B Baker Street, casting a pale gold upon the familiar rosewood table. Hercule Poirot sat opposite Captain Hastings, a single sheet of notepaper before him, upon which he had begun to record the final reflections on the extraordinary affair of the fallen lantern. Outside, London's streets stirred with the footfalls of early risers and the distant clatter of omnibus wheels. But within the cosy sitting-room, a profound stillness reigned. Poirot sipped his morning tea, pipe in hand, and allowed his thoughts to drift back to the past weeks. The tragic fall of Lionel Fairchild beneath the lantern, the ingenious concealment of his testament within the compass, the nurturing of young actors through scholarship, the founding of a theatre school, the daring theft of the file, and the exposure of Lancaster Bell's misguided zeal. Each event had rippled outward, shaping destinies and reminding all that art and justice are interwoven threads in the human tapestry. Hastings leaned forward, stirring his cocoa. "Poirot, tell me truly, do you ever feel that our work here is done? Or does the world always hold one more flicker of intrigue?" He smiled, though his eyes shone with genuine curiosity. Poirot set down his cup and folded his hands upon the table. "Mon ami, the little grey cells are ever vigilant. Yet in this case, I believe we have honoured the light and shielded its legacy from darkness. Now, we attend to a single final duty, to return the artefacts to their rightful keepers, and to ensure that Lionel Fairchild's cause endures long after we have solved this last mystery." He tapped the notepaper where he had outlined a plan. First, to deliver the compass and the crystal phial to the Fairchild Theatre School exhibition. Second, to witness the burning of the compass's original vellum list at a private ceremony of release. And third, to place a commemorative plaque beneath the restored lantern in Regent's Park, a testament to both the fall and the rise of its flame. Hastings nodded, rising to fetch the letters they would need. "I have already drafted invitations for Lady Marjorie, the school's faculty, and Inspector MacLeod." He laid 3 envelopes upon the table. "Shall we send them at once?" Poirot affixed stamps with meticulous care. "Yes, mon ami. Let us set the final stage." 2 days later, the gala transfer ceremony took place in the grand foyer of the Fairchild Theatre School. Students, faculty, alumni, and close friends gathered beneath the high arches, where bunting in white and gold celebrated both past triumphs and future promise. At the centre of the hall, encased in crystal beneath spotlights, lay the brass compass and the crystal phial. Around them, portraits of Lionel Fairchild in various roles gazed upon the assembly. Lady Marjorie presided, her shawl a soft echo of her late husband's favourite lavender. Poirot and Hastings took honoured places beside her, while Inspector MacLeod, Jenkins, Frederick Danvers, Helena Drury, Percival Crane, and Eliza Penrose formed a semicircle. The air was heavy with anticipation. Poirot stepped forward, cane in hand, and addressed the audience. "Mes amis, the compass once concealed Lionel Fairchild's final testament, and the phial held the last flicker of his guiding flame. Today, we return them to the custody of those they were meant to inspire, into a permanent exhibition where they shall educate and encourage for generations." He gestured toward the glass case. As 2 students in white gloves unlatched the display, Poirot continued, "Let these objects serve not as relics of tragedy, but as beacons of hope. May every visitor see here the proof that darkness may fall, yet the human spirit's light endures." With that, The compass and file were gently lifted and carried by a pair of apprentices to the new exhibition hall, where curators would catalogue them under the heading Legacy of Fairchild's Lantern. The assembled guests applauded, their faces alight with pride and relief. That evening, a private gathering convened beneath the restored lantern in Regent's Park. The pool of cobbled plaza bore the golden sheen of autumn leaves, and the freshly planted vines climbed toward the wrought-iron crown. A small dais had been erected, and upon it lay Lionel Fairchild's journal and the vellum letter removed from the compass. Jenkins stood nearby with a single flickering candle, ready to light the ceremonial torch. Poirot, Hastings, Lady Marjorie, and Inspector MacLeod formed a solemn quartet. Poirot opened the journal's final pages, reading aloud, "If this light endures, let it guide the hearts of those who follow. Know that every stage, every glance, every gesture holds the power to heal and to uplift. To you, my confidant, I entrust this lamp's flame, my last gift to the theatre I loved." As his voice faded, Lady Marjorie took the vellum and placed it upon a small brazier. Jenkins lit the candle, its flame alighting the paper. The vellum curled and began to burn, tiny sparks dancing upward before settling as ash upon the braziers. Great! Hastings fought tears, while Lady Marjorie's shawl bore a single glistening droplet. Poirot stepped forward, raising his cane gently. Thus we release Lionel's final words to the past, consigning them to the memory of all who have heard them. The true legacy, however, rests in our deeds and in every life touched by his compassion. Inspector MacLeod nodded in solemn agreement, and may the memory of Fairchild's Lantern guide us in every path of justice. The following morning, back at Baker Street, Poirot reflected upon the quiet house as he penned the concluding entry in his black notebook. The Clue Under the Falling Lantern. Epilogue, from poison's breath to a seed of hope, from a fallen lamp to an eternal flame, Lionel Fairchild's legacy has transcended tragedy to become a beacon of art, justice, and compassion. May every heart that finds its way here be guided by his light. Hercule Poirot, he closed the notebook and conserved a single fingerprint card, marking the capture of Lancaster Bell, alongside his usual case files. Hastings joined him with 2 cups of breakfast tea, placing them upon the small oval table. "Well, Poirot," Hastings said, lifting his cup in salute, "another tale fully told. Do you ever imagine yourself without a case to conclude?" Poirot's moustache twitched in amusement. "Mon ami, as long as human nature persists, there will be mysteries to solve, and those to illuminate. But for today, let us savour this moment of completion." Outside, the lamps of Upper Wimpole Street were still unlit, awaiting evening's call. Within the detective's flat, the soft clink of china mingled with the rustle of turning pages, a quiet rejoinder to a saga both extraordinary and profoundly human. And so, as the amber leaves fell gently in the street below, Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings sat in companionable repose, secure in the knowledge that the lantern's last testament would burn eternal in the hearts of all who followed its light. Chapter 18. The Dawn of Everlasting Light. The winter's first thaw was barely perceptible. A gentle promise whispered on, the January breeze that rustled the bare branches along Upper Wimpole Street. London awoke beneath a pale amber sky, the gas lamps still glowing faintly, as if reluctant to surrender their warmth to the dawn. Inside 221B Baker Street, the familiar drawing-room lay in soft half-light. Mrs. Hudson had already laid a tray of steaming coffee and buttered scones upon the small oval table. Hercule Poirot sat before the hearth, his little grey cells at rest, for once the brass compass pin from Lionel Fairchild's legacy glinting upon his waistcoat. Captain Hastings entered, coat sleeves damp with frost, and offered a salute with a steaming mug in each hand. "Peace at last, Poirot," Hastings said, settling into his armchair opposite. No threat to the lantern's flame, no missing files or stolen relics, just the gentle passage of winter into spring. Poirot inclined his head, accepting the coffee with refined grace. "Yes, mon ami, and yet every season holds mysteries untold. But our affair of the fallen lantern, the compass's secret and the enduring light it kindled, has drawn to its final close, at least for now." He paused, eyes drifting to the mantel, where stood 2 framed photographs, one of the restored Regent's Park lantern, adorned with climbing vines, the other of the opening of the Fairchild Theatre School. Hastings followed his gaze. "Those images alone remind me of the ripples we set in motion. From tragedy to triumph, from poison to promise, what a journey it has been." Poirot tapped his cane lightly upon the hearth's edge. "Indeed. Yet tonight I received another letter, Hastings, this one from Lady Marjorie Fairchild herself." He removed an envelope from his breast pocket. "She invites us to one final gathering, a winter soirée at the restored Regent's Park Plaza, beneath the lantern, to celebrate the continuing scholarship bursaries and the latest cohort of young performers." Hastings's face brightened. "A fitting coda. May I assume you will regale the assembly with your recounting of the little grey cells?" He teased. Poirot permitted himself a rare, small smile. "If they insist, but I suspect they are more eager to toast the living light than the sleight of detection. Let us accept, and then, Hastings, we may truly allow our minds a respite." That evening, a hush lay over the Regent's Park Plaza, as lantern globes cast gentle pools of gold upon the cobbles. The iron fence was draped in evergreen boughs and illuminated by strings of fairy lights, while a low stage bore a modest lectern and a circle of chairs. Lady Marjorie Fairchild stood beneath the lamp-post, bundled in a cloak of deep lavender, her breath a soft mist in the cold air. Surrounding her were the usual assembly: Frederick Danvers, Helena Drury, Percival Crane, Jenkins with his accordion at rest, and a new contingent of scholarship recipients, crisp in their evening wear. Poirot and Hastings arrived arm in arm, offering Lady Marjorie each a bow. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," she greeted warmly. "I feared you might balk at a winter gathering beneath the open sky." Poirot swept his moustache with courtesy. "Madam, no chill can dim the glow of friendship and remembrance." He tapped the mantle of his overcoat. "How fare the bursaries? Have the new students flourished?" Lady Marjorie's eyes shone. "Thanks to your efforts, the school has doubled its intake. These young actors, playwrights and directors shall carry Lionel's vision onward." She gestured to a line of graduates, each clutching a single white rose. "Allow me to introduce them." One by one, the new scholars stepped forward and offered a sentence of thanks. a director whose first stage reading sold out, an actor who found her voice in Lionel's monologue, a playwright whose first script won a local prize. Each voice carried the same undertone of gratitude, their hope gleaming as brightly as the lantern above. When the last speaker finished, Lady Marjorie approached the lectern. Poirot and Hastings took seats in the front row, the lantern's glow flickering across their faces. Silence fell, punctuated only by the faint hum of the city beyond the trees. "Friends," Lady Marjorie began, "we stand beneath the lantern that witnessed both tragedy and triumph. Many seasons ago, Lionel Fairchild's life was claimed by its fall. Yet through justice and compassion, we rebuilt it as a beacon of art and hope. Tonight, we honor that legacy, not only for the past, but for the promise of seasons to come." A distant hush of assent rippled through the audience, and Jenkins stepped forward with his accordion. As he began the gentle introduction to Fairchild's Lantern, the scholars joined in song, their voices weaving through the crisp air like lantern light itself. Poirot watched the circle of faces, young and bright, and felt a rare swell of contentment in his heart. When the final chord faded, Poirot rose to stand beside Lady Marjorie. He tapped his cane lightly, calling for attention. "Mes amis, we have gathered through autumn's hush and winter's chill to affirm that a single lamp, once extinguished in sorrow, may blaze anew in kindness. Yet the true light is not bound by steel and glass, but shines in every heart that chooses compassion." He paused, letting the silence deepen. Then he produced a small crystal vial, no larger than a thimble, its contents golden and gleaming. The crowd gasped as they recognized the phial of Fairchild's original flame. "This vial," Poirot continued, "has remained in safekeeping, a drop of flame conserved through trials of theft and protest. Tonight, I offer it to the school's new library, where it shall rest beneath glass, alongside the compass and the journal, not as relics of the past, but as beacons for the future. May every student who glimpses this light remember the journey from darkness to dawn." Lady Marjorie approached and accepted the vial with trembling hands. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. Your guardianship of these symbols has preserved more than memory. It has preserved hope itself." Hastings rose to his feet as well, raising a glass of mulled wine, to Lionel Fairchild, whose light endures in every scholar, every performance, and every heart this night. A chorus of "To Fairchild" rose into the shadowed boughs, and lanterns swayed gently overhead, as though in applause. Even the plane trees seemed to bend closer, their bare limbs cradling the glow. After the ceremony, the lantern's pool of light glimmered upon the cobbles as guests drifted away, leaving only the core circle. Poirot and Hastings lingered with Lady Marjorie, Jenkins, and Inspector MacLeod. Jenkins lifted his accordion once more and offered a soft reprise of the chant, this time as a lullaby to the lighter season ahead. The melody threaded through the quiet plaza, its notes weaving comfort into the night. Poirot watched the swirl of smoke from Lady Marjorie's candle as she bade Jenkins cease. Then he turned to Hastings. "Mon ami, our task is complete. The lamps fall, the compass's secret, the phial's trials, and now the last spark secured. What remains is for us to cherish these memories and await new mysteries wherever they may beckon. Hastings nodded, his breath visible in the frosty air, and to ensure that every lampfall, every compass revelation, and every phial's flame finds its way back to the light. They shook hands with Lady Marjorie and MacLeod, then retreated down the path, their footsteps echoing upon the frost-kissed stones. The lantern's glow followed them, a steadfast witness to seasons of sorrow and seasons of hope. Returning to Baker Street, they found Mrs. Hudson waiting with a pot of hot chocolate and freshly baked gingerbread. Poirot removed his scarf and draped the brass compass pin upon the mantel once more. Its journey concluded, its legacy secured. Hastings placed his empty glass upon the table with a contented sigh. "Good night, Poirot," Hastings murmured, settling into his armchair. "Tomorrow the world may hold new puzzles, but tonight we rest in the dawn of everlasting light." Poirot smiled, gazing at the compass and the vial's display upon the mantel. "Good night, Captain, and may every lamp cast its glow upon a just and kindly world." As the fire crackled and the city's lamps dimmed at the approach of dawn, the two companions drifted into sleep, content that they had guided one small flame through the darkest of times, and into a future bright with promise.